Wow. We got an intro, fam. See that? Okay. Welcome back to Colorist Gavin Collab. We got 3 of us in here right now. Others will be coming in soon. How's everybody doing today? Michael Beacon.
I'm doing good. Just start of my weekend.
Nice. Cap.
I'm good. I've got a headache from last night, but I'm good.
Got a little bit of the
No, it was a little bit of the Scotsman teaching stuff.
Oh, that. Oh, did I hurt your brain?
It did afterwards when I was when we finished. I went and sat down with a beer, and I was just chilling, and started thinking about it all and how I'm going to implement it and put the processes into. And again, like I was saying after the thing, I all of a sudden I understand what Color with Kurt's on about. And then my brain just exploded on me. It was just like, no. Just ignore all of that now. Go back to your beer. Chill out. Put something on the television.
We covered a basket of techniques yesterday. We did a little. Oh, so the audience doesn't know. We did a little colorist boot camp yesterday for a few people who, we're looking at in Conquest Comics. Some people to teach my style, so that we can all kind of synergize on some projects and maybe push things out fast. So there's a lot of things going on. So I did a little boot camp with a few people and taught them how to do my style and the techniques that I use, the layer setups I use, and how long were we together? Like 6-hour session, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. It was not short.
It was definitely a bit.
Worth it though, worth every minute.
I think we got some good results from it. I mean, I think everybody kind of got what I was saying, took the sample file and were able to render, pretty close to what I would do as far as, demonstrating the techniques that I was teaching. So yeah, no, I think it was really positive. So.
Right, the only person who wasn't getting on with it was Odie because he didn't want to flap behind the hair.
There's a bunch of techniques that seem maybe useless or not necessary, and when you're first starting out coloring, you cut a lot of corners and you get a good result and you go, hey, I know how to color, and that's cool. But then you color for somebody else and they go, that looks great, but can you change this? And you go, oh shit, I gotta cut this all up apart now and make it editable again because I worked all flat and stuff, So not having reversibility in your work, in your rendering style, is a problem if you're coloring for other people. If you're doing it for your own self, you don't need to flat if you don't want to. You can use flattened layers. You can render all in one layer together. You're going to create pain for yourself, but if you choose, because a lot of artists, they look at something, then you go to lunch, you go to dinner, come home, open the art piece back up, and you're like, oh, I fucking hate this whole thing.
Yep, I know that feeling well. Yep.
But if you work in a destructible way where everything, all the pixels you put down, all the brush strokes you put down, everything is final, there's no way to reverse it, then you got to figure out how to edit things. You end up just painting at that point. You're not comic book coloring. You're just digitally painting. So there's a difference there. But it was a great thing. It kind of leads into the show today because yesterday while we were doing that boot camp, it was all about rendering styles. It was all about my rendering style and teaching that to others. So with the entire realm of comic book coloring, there are dozens of styles, but there's a handful. Most of the entirety of all the different coloring styles are a kind of a hybrid of multiples put together, and a basket of techniques you use for maybe backgrounds, and then for characters use another set. You use a special brush that you love. It's got a certain texture to it or a certain flow to it. you use those for different applications. So, but before we go any further, I want to address the chat. We've got David Feed. Hello, David Feed. Welcome. Optimus Deadpool. Optimus, hello. And Comic Book Black Belt. Hello. Thanks for being
Russ?
here today. Yeah.
Hey.
It looks like we've got what's
And of course, Opti and Mr. Feed.
we've got according to the numbers, we got 5 people watching, 6 people watching.
Oh, cool.
And Sim is here. Hi, Sim.
Hey.
Hi.
How you
What
doing?
are we doing here? Is this the coloring show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
I
away.
know.
Yeah.
Damn, I think I pressed on the wrong link.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
How's it going? Good morning.
So, dude, we're doing great, man. How was your how's your Sunday shaping up?
Very well. Woke up, slept in. Get it?
Yeah.
I woke up, I realized I slept in, and that felt great. That's what I meant.
Nice. Yeah. I saw every morning when I wake up, I kind of open Twitter and I go through my messages and I look and see who's posted links and what DM groups and stuff. And I saw that yesterday, Adam AF's woke up show, like he got up there and set it up and like he's like, fuck it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I didn't wake up. I woke up at 11. Blame me on that one. But nobody else showed up, and I'm like, what?
Well, I was on Michael Bancroft's stream on Friday night until like 4 a.m. my time, and then I was kind of
I know, remember?
Skip, huh?
I was there too. Remember?
Yeah. I'm just saying.
I know.
There's other people watching, Sim.
I know.
There's a handful of people here, loyal.
We have to, and that's why we have to make it entertaining.
Right. So after that, I kind of hung out with Skip for a little while, and we talked technique and stuff for a little bit, and then I ended up getting in bed at 6 a.m. and then waking up at like 8:45 to get a little boot camp session together for some of the other Conquest peoples. And we did a coloring boot camp for like 6 hours, and then I went and fucking crashed and went to sleep. It's crazy. So,
yeah, I know. That's what happened. I was with Bancroft. Decided to take a 2-hour nap. Well, it took more than 2 hours.
2 turns into 4 or 6.
Yeah. So woke up at
Doesn't
11.
that suck? You wake up feeling like you got shot with a sedative dart. You know, and you're like, oh my god, where am I? What day is it? Your beard's a half-inch longer, and you're like, fuck, I don't know what day it is.
Like there was one morning when Anna was trying to wake me up for one of the shows that I had. Like my phone kept ringing. She's like, I tried to wake you up, Sim, but you kept saying, yeah, I love you, sweetie. And you turned around and grabbed you. Sim, you have a show. You're like, yeah, I love you.
I know for a fact that was just Adam AF sending you text messages, wasn't it?
Wake up! No, actually, Hannah's my little girl trying to wake me up, so it's even funnier when you're saying like, Sim, I love you. I know. Good night. Go make some coffee. Then she comes back. Coffee is ready. Oh, okay, thank you. She goes, I tried really hard to wake you up. I'm like, yeah, shit happens. Love you.
Well, we've come together today to talk about rendering styles.
Ooh.
Yeah, color rendering styles. There's a bunch of them out there, right?
Yep.
I would say that there's probably 3 core rendering styles.
Yeah, and there's also no rendering style. Don't forget that one.
Well, that, I mean, including that as well, one of them out there, but ones where you're actually using a brush and you're intentionally adding light and shadow. So the technique of adding light and shadow to define light source and form.
The highlights, the rim light, all those. Yeah.
And my eye is itching like crazy. Ugh. So those 3 that I kind of want to cover today are cell shading, painterly, and cut and grad. Those three. And what they'd be most appropriately used for. But then I'd also like to go around the panel and kind of have each person put a name to their coloring style. If it not be one of those four, what you would call it, because I think defining what your style is or what styles you're capable of, it helps you get an understanding of what genres you can work on or you should work on because they accommodate you the best, right? Yep. Obviously, anime and manga styles are more cel-shaded.
Yep.
You've got Western comics that are sort of cel-shaded, but there's a little bit more texture and a lot of painterly styles. And then there's the hybrid, of using cuts and grads with painterly and with a little bit of cel shading. You add all those things together and, you apply those techniques to specific types of comics, right?
So there's actually two types of rendering and one that's being stubborn and you like both. Got it.
Maybe.
I'm just expressing myself because that's pretty much what happened in my coloring. Like you started doing the painterly, then people are like try to sell the tune shading. You're like that kind of looks better with my shit. I hate it. And then you're starting to try and mix it up. It's pretty much the rule of anything, right? You learn the basic. I think that would be it. You need to learn the basic of both of them, and then you can mix and match, which becomes the cut and grad you call. Which that one was really interesting.
Yeah, like, my style is cut and grad. It's hybrid cel shading cut and grad. So.
I like it's like make sure that there's only one side that's hard and one side that's soft. I'm like, makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the real trick there is a combination of soft edges and hard edges. You can look at something that's colored and kind of tell how confident the colorist is on that work by how many hard edges they have. If it's all soft and really soft brush, you can see the brush strokes of just this really soft airbrush everywhere. I immediately look at that and I go, they have an understanding of the form, but they're not really comfortable with their light source, right? Where you see people tighten up their lines and use some hard edges where it'll go from a soft gradient to a narrow, really defined edge. That transition tells me that they not only understand the form, but they understand exactly where the light's coming from and what other objects are doing to that form between it and the light source, affecting how that light spreads, whether it's a volumetric shadow, whether it's going into an ambient occlusion, whether it's a specular highlight. Those individual little things in the composition of the coloring of the entire piece, you pick those things out and you can say, yep, they understand that you can see kind of their skill level from that. So it's interesting.
Okay, so you're over 9,000. Got it.
9,000.
Dude,
not quite 9,000.
I can see by your stroke on your brush that you weren't really confident when you did it.
You gotta get Vegeta.
You might have needed your morning coffee before your girlfriend pissed you off that morning.
Are you trying to tell me that your rendering style can compete with mine? Go and train. I'll wait. Come back.
And I saw all that in your paintbrush stroke.
You used that textured brush for that material? Amateur.
Yeah. That brush came with the freaking Photoshop guy. Come on, customize.
Well, I mean, for the majority of my cuts and grads, I use the default soft round, and I shape it using very precise lasso selections. So that's one of the things that one of the techniques I detailed yesterday.
But by very precise, you mean like he zooms in till he only sees pixels, then he selects pixel by pixel. Damn it.
Not quite.
Not quite, but almost there.
Not quite.
I see what you did there.
See what I did there?
Yep.
So okay. So let's kind of go around and detail what your coloring style is. Where did you learn it? Why do you like it? And just give the audience kind of why you do the things you do. So, Michael Beacon.
Let's see. I'm just gonna sort of grabbing a couple more samples here real quick. Just
Oh, we've got samples.
yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
Dang it, where's the new samples? Try and find new samples. Okay. I guess I'll just work with what I got. Open with it. Doesn't look. All right. Now I can screen share.
Kind of sad Ink Spots isn't here this morning. His painterly style is incredible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So is Vinny's.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for me, with the style that I color in, it depends on the artist or like what the subject matter is. Like so here's a page of Cyborg USA, in which I went for a style that was sort of reminiscent of like a 80s and 90s Saturday morning cartoon. So cell shading. And this is one of the first things I worked on in cell shading. But yeah, hard edges on all the colors. And I also added a little bit of a grain layer on top of all the colors.
Some texture, nice.
Yeah. But yeah, just real simple flat colors. One thing I keep in mind when doing cell shading on skin, if you add a highlight, sometimes it makes the skin look wet or like they're sweaty. So like in a scene like this where they're just talking, I don't really put any highlights on, or if I do soft soft highlights.
Because if you do it too much, the skin starts looking like plastic. Like I'm a Barbie girl.
Yeah. So if I do highlights on the skin and cell shading, it's always going to be like they're in intense action or anything, or just they're getting rained on or something.
Right. That's actually a huge point. When rendering, you should not only try to accommodate the art style, but you need to keep in mind what the surface is made out of that you're coloring.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want everything to look like chrome.
Yeah.
Skin isn't supposed to look like glass.
Yeah.
You might have some highlights, some specular highlights that make it look shiny because there's sweat or water or whatever, but it should look like skin. And cloth should look like cloth, not metal.
Only boobs and butts are shiny. All the rest is never shiny like that. Never.
Oh, welcome to the chat, Kyle Ritter. Hello, sir.
Welcome.
Hey. Yeah. Okay, so that's that comic, and like so here I got a page of Dusty Tortillas where I sort of I started adding an underlayer for skin, like a red right down the middle, blue toward the beard area on guys, and a little bit of like a pale yellowish color. And like if someone's like been running or in a intense fight or anything, they're like scared, sad, or anything like that, increase or decrease that red.
Yeah, you get the blood rushing to your cheeks.
Yeah.
Your adrenaline's going. You're getting flush in the face. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I got, and here's some more like painterly style with the clouds. If I were to do this again, I'd probably use different brushes, because up close it doesn't quite look as good, but yeah.
Yeah, for those long away shots like that, I usually will over the ink, I'll color hold the clouds, the lines in the clouds, and put a haze going forward from background to foreground. That way you create a lot of depth. But yeah, definitely need a painterly style for clouds.
Yeah, and here I did a little bit of that depth coloring. Like it's a little grayed out toward here, toward like
Hmm.
closer to the horizon. Not as much as I would do now, but yeah. And then yeah. So for this, with the highlights and everything, I did more cell shading style, at
Mhm.
least for the characters. Once again, no highlights on the skin until they get to like intense action and like they'd be sweating. Let's see, and then yeah. So one thing, I discovered along the way when working on Dusty Tortillas is like, I at first I was doing a more like painterly style,
Mhm.
more rendered. But then once they saw my cell shading style, they want me to apply that. So yeah, I just sort of, different styles work for different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's not true. Everything has to be the same. The hell are you talking about?
yeah, yeah. So then speaking of different styles
Ooh.
working, yeah. So as soon as I saw Sim's artwork, I was like, yeah, I immediately knew cell shading.
And that's the moment I knew that you needed to color some of my shit.
Yeah. And like right here, you see highlights on the skin. He's in a rainy area at night. Add a little bit of color holds on the highlights, make it look more foggy, and like make it look like there's like a more mist, or like more, trying to put a word to it, but
Yeah. When you're working above the ink, you create a little bit of create a little bit of distortion and depth by
yeah.
by putting some haze
Yeah.
on top. Mm-hmm.
And by the way, a little bit of plug, you can get this right now on a bookmark if you back 7 Legions. So, so yeah, let's see. And then, so when I was coloring issue 2 of 7 Legions, one thing I recognized about, this is artwork by Henry Ponciano. He has, his style shifts depending on the height of the action. So like I noticed he has a sliding scale of like Bushima to the guy who did Samurai Jack. I can never remember his name.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has a sliding scale like between those two styles. Like depending on the action, it'll get more like Samurai Jack style. But like moments like these where you're focusing on a character, it's
Nice.
more Bushima style. So that's one thing I kept in mind as I was coloring it. So like in intense action, I went more cell shaded.
Welcome to the show, Ink Spots, by the way.
Hey.
What's up, guys? Sorry, I had to drag my fat ass out of bed. Overslept.
Fair enough.
That
all
shit
good, man.
happens. Damn.
It's all good. Cool.
But no, when it went to the more Bushima style, I would do, slightly more painterly, I suppose, but still with a little bit of cell shading influence, like on the highlights, on the metal. But yeah, and I got the manga style. I colored obviously cell shading.
Yeah. And then this piece.
Yeah,
Love that piece.
Oh yeah, and it's taking forever to load for some reason.
Yeah.
Come on, there you go.
He said load.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I said, come on.
It's my favorite adjective.
Come on, load.
I mean, it's kind of a noun though in our context, right?
and here I apply the cell shading style. This is like the first piece I did of Henry's where I did more cell shading. But again with like man, my brain is not working today. Color holds on the lights.
Mm-hmm.
But like, one thing to keep in mind with colorists, like with coloring, a good way to add focus or to push characters toward the back, use colder colors on stuff you don't want the focus to be on, everything, and also warmer colors for where you want focus. And I did that a lot in the background here. You got the that line there, so it brings the focus on these characters here. But yeah, and yeah, back to the beginning. So
The interesting thing too is even though we're coloring comics, we can still apply the same fundamentals we would use for painting, right?
yeah,
Paint
absolutely.
when you paint, it's typically you paint from background to foreground, cool to warm. And one of the reasons that is because there is oxygen, and those molecules, they actually have volume to them, and they distort light photons. So things that are far, far in the distance away from you, there's a lot of particles in the air between you and the camera, being your eye lens, right? And so as those light photons hit all those particles, they diffuse and get softer and softer. And every time light refracts, it gets weaker and weaker. Its wavelength decreases. So that's why things that are really far away from you tend to be cooler, because the intensity of their colors is being distorted by the light photons losing strength as they get closer and closer to your eye. So things that are close to you maintain their warmth because there's less air and less particles between your eye lens and the object. So you'll see mountains off in the distance. They look like cardboard cutouts because there's so much air between them and you. And there's a bunch of green trees and bright bushes and grass and stuff like that. But because it's so far away, you get those lighter colors.
That would have been an interesting episode of Star Trek.
Right? Yeah, fair enough. Well, that's great. Cap, what would you define your rendering style as?
Juvenile.
No.
Where do you see it heading? Since I'm kind of mentoring you in a way. I mean, you're obviously a badass artist, but do you think I'm pushing you towards my style, or are you kind of going out on your own?
It's a mixture of both. So when I started, I'm fucking got to find it now. Finish work. Sorry, I was drawing. Finish work. Blah 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 blah. Feel the dead air. Batman. Joker. Here we go. Here we go. I can screen share.
Yeah. Yep.
No volume. He doesn't talk.
It doesn't twerk.
No, it doesn't talk. Right. Doesn't talk.
All right, here we go.
I know I know that's a posh American for twerk, but it's really not. So
what do we got here?
I initially wanted just to start drawing again.
Oh, I remember that.
And I can't remember who it was. I saw somebody colouring online, and I went, I need to try that. And then I went, I haven't got the equipment. And then I ended up in a charity shop and found an A3 Wacom Intius 3 for a tenner. You know, the big whopping thing that you can use to smack your kids with, like the massive fucking tablet. The one of the type of tablet that you could run over with a fucking 10-ton lorry or truck and nothing would ever happen to it. It'd still work perfectly.
A lorry, you Brit.
And I just had to have a go. And I still approach colouring exactly the same way as I approached this. So I was lucky I had reference to work from this as well. But should I show you this? The first thing I do whenever I'm colouring, and no matter what style I'm trying to figure out, that wasn't the question, but I'll come back to that, is I map out where my shadows and my highlights are. I have an extra layer on top of the inks, and I just get usually a bright pink, because real men wear pink, ladies and gentlemen, and they eat quiche. And then I'll sit and I'll draw in bright pink where all my shadows are going, my deep dark shadows, and then I'll draw in like a lime green where all my highlights are going, and then I can just work it out from there because I've got a road map of where I want to put shadows up, where I want to paint the light rather than paint the color. And that's one of the things that I'm learning rapidly, is whenever you are doing colors, regardless of what it's for, you're not actually painting in color, you're painting in light. And that's something I'd forgotten from years and years ago, because I used to be able to paint in an analog style using acrylic paint, which I still love to this day.
Mr. Kyle Ritter asks, who colored this?
This was me, Kyle. This was definitely me. This was he can't read my lips, obviously, can he?
No, he can't. That's what that's how I was going to. It's like you can try and convince them all. You said it before.
And I can't.
You
I'm
should
not.
probably just answer in the chat, please.
I can't because I'm not logged into my YouTube channel and I can't find Scotsman on the other one. So I can't. I can't because someone
Kyle,
replied to him.
Captain Fuckhead colored it.
Yes, I
down
did.
here.
I did. That's correct.
Yeah.
But so are you pushing me towards your style? I've been playing with a lot of cell shading and a lot of simpler stuff. I can show you something else, which is recently, which is about to. No, it is. It's live on a campaign now. I can say that it's in a book. Where are we, Mr. Leach? Mr. Leach. So more of a cell shading approach would be this guy.
Ah, yeah.
Which I had a fucking shitload of fun doing.
Nice.
But and one of the things I learned very recently is I'm not really a fan of all these textured brushes. What I tend to do is actually get a real brush and watercolor and a nice big thick bit of card, and then build my texture that way. And then scan that into the computer and use that as either an overlay or an underlay and play with the. I always want to say occupancy.
Wait, so you mean you make your own texture pictures?
For
You don't
some
just
things I
troll
do,
the
yeah.
internet and swipe them?
No, well for the ground on this one, that was me with watercolor, just using grey paints, well black
Nice.
obviously, and different amounts of water to create whatever.
So ink wash.
Well, I was using watercolor. I've not started really playing with inks as yet, but I use watercolor and acrylics to do that. But I've also been playing with, I suppose, more your kind of style, which was this last, which is from the same project.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, we spoke about this when I was doing this, and you helped me a lot with the color hold. I didn't use your way of doing it. I used a completely separate way, which probably took me about 4 hours too long, but I got there in the end. But yeah, so I'm kind of mixing both together. I like the way that yours finishes, particularly in your style. I love the way you finish your work. But I've always had, from being through art college and studying three-dimensional design and graphic design fucking for years and years and years, I've always had a more graphical style, and I want to bring that approach into my coloring as well.
So almost vector art feeling?
If you imagine vector art, but done using, done traditionally, and I mean on a canvas with a brush and a paint. Like I used to do a lot of paintings way back when in that kind of style. I sold a fucking fuck ton of them as well, and they're not that difficult to make. They just take a long time because you have to build in layers and you have to make sure your lines are really crisp. And to do that in paint can be very difficult. So it's a long-term process for doing paintings like that. But I want to bring that into the way I color. So I want to start with, my plan is, I think, is start with cell shading. Then bring in some of that cut and grad stuff, and then go back over it again to give it a more graphical feel.
You know,
If
it's
that makes
funny.
sense.
You're speaking about a little bit of traditional, right? A little bit of traditional. The way I color now is very similar to the way I used to airbrush, where I cut frisket film. Yeah, that's a term that you don't hear very often anymore, which is a clear film for masking when you're doing airbrush art.
Yep.
So you would take an X-Acto and cut a little thin little piece, peel the frisket away, and then spray, and then cut a bigger piece, peel it away, and then spray. And you would build gradients, cuts, and grads using an airbrush and an X-Acto knife and frisket film. So yeah, that's great, man. That's great.
So if you ask me if I have a style, I've got no idea. I have, like I say, I'm all new to this, so I have an idea of where I want to go. I've just got to find out, or I've just got to find the map that will take me there, I think is the best way to describe it. I can see it in my brain. Certainly a combination between these two would be really pleasing for my brain. That would really tickle me. It's sort of combining the styles of these two things.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I would also say that realistically, I think my dog's just heard the ice cream man. I can hear him howling. I would say that these are probably the only 3 things I've actually properly coloured, if that makes sense. Sorry, Sim. I better show something else now because other Sim will get upset. Let me have a look. Because one of the... I've done a lot of practicing, but when it gets to finished work is a different entity entirely. Let's see if I can find it.
I'd say that Joker looks fantastic, dude.
Yep.
Yeah,
The hair
it
is-
is.
The
I love
hair
the
is
lighting.
just shining, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really good.
I love the lighting on the gloves.
Yeah.
Well, that I get, like I was saying, I just mapped out my deep shadows and my highlights, and all that was I would just like you do in painting. I would just block out the color. So I particularly on the gloves, I just have the darkest dark, the local color, and then the highlight, and then it was just a smudge tool, but very carefully, just playing with the smudge tool and building it slowly but surely. So it takes time, but
little bit of CG deep lore. That was the first time you and I spoke about over this piece.
this was. And I do know that you would prefer it if I showed you the other one, but it's on my backup hard drive. It's not on this. It's not on this computer.
Well, the recommendation I made, and after seeing the beautiful rendering work you've done, is adding some colored light sources.
Yes.
Purple on one side of the skin, green on the other, just to add another dimension of storytelling. And that was what we talked about. But like seeing you start and grow and develop your style over time, it's been really great. Well,
I better show this because Sim's been a huge help to me as well. So there's one of Sim's.
Oh yeah,
That's going back.
Colonel Comics.
Yeah.
That's a freaking while back.
Yeah.
And you nailed the mask. I love the texture on it.
Yeah, the mask looks good.
Thank you. See, I am learning. Like I said last night, learning is happening.
Yep.
It's a positive, good thing. Learning is happening.
Well, and there's a thing that one of the whole reasons I wanted to do this show is because I think we get entrenched in our own styles, and there's part of it is we kind of think we know what's the best way to do things, and maybe we do, but there's a bunch of people who are doing the same thing as we're doing, maybe a little bit different. And if you could take something away that makes you better, makes you faster, maybe blossoms into a whole other series or basket of techniques for you to pull from, that just makes you better. So being humble enough as a person, like I try to always like listen to criticism and listen to other people's ideas when it comes to coloring and anything really, but coloring since it's the topic, and use that as tackling fuel. Try to get better. Always try to get better.
Yeah. I should point out that the guy on the left and the lass on the right are for Mr. Russ Leach's, aka Comic Book Black Belt's currently live project. Only Death Can Save Us.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that book. Buy it.
Yeah. Yep. Available now on Indie the Go-Go.
Well, great. Let's see. How about Sim?
Okay, let's do this. Share my screen.
I think Vinny is
that
coming.
mean?
He said he's just going to be late. So
Yeah, Vinny mentioned that. Yeah.
So here's one of the colors, one of the first colors that I was actually happy with when learning my new coloring technique, because I was one of the guys that used to think about doing colors like matte painting. So I used to have the matte painting approach. So I was stubborn enough to try and I'm going to try and reach the perfect mix between, Simon Bisley oil paints and line work like I like to do. And they just don't happen to mix that well together. You're gonna, if you want to go full, Bisley type of art, you have to know that you're gonna, no line work is really that important, right? You're gonna lose that line work.
Yeah.
So that's when I had people like Passion, Beacon, and Scottman going, Sim, you should probably try the the tune shade approach. Then I started playing with it. So this is with a few pointers of Kyle Ritter that's also in the chat. He's the one that gave me the idea for the cold and explain me the cold and the warm thing, but I did it in the opposite way.
Oh, never heard of him before.
Like instead of putting like instead of putting the cold in the back, I pulled the cold in the front, and that was an advice by Kyle to do this shit, and it actually worked because of the fire and the moon there. You're waiting for me to react to the fact that you're checking my book.
What do you mean? I don't know.
But that said,
Sorry.
the point of what I'm showing you right here is you see how I finished the colors there with a few of my friends' pointers. I ended up doing more of a tune shading because I used to never select and color. I used to all the time used to be flats, then go in with a soft brush type of thing. That used to be my my type of like airbrush approach at all time, and it used to give it a muddy type of look. Here's the sample. These were the first colors of Blood Hunt, the cover.
Oh.
That was the first. Yeah. That was the colors for when I was on the first campaign. The first colors I did. Then I started reworking them, which started to look more with that type of tone. Then Kyle came and he's like, "Oh, let me give you a bit of a pointers about environment lighting, because you got two lights, right? Here's another one that you're forgetting about." So this was me starting to do more like cell shading, and then after that I started into experimenting a bit more. So that's when you got this one that came in. I started coloring this one, which this one was me trying to mix all techniques in there. So starting with tune shading, and then going in the like Mr. was said over there, half what is it? Hard edge, soft edge. How'd you call it again? Soft and hard.
Cut and grad.
Cut and grad. There you go. I like soft and hard better. I don't know why. Anyways, one of the first thing that I did was, if you look at one of those, let's go back to, here's an example here. This was me going out, and all the colors I did for like a few pieces was just selection. There was no gradient, no nothing. I just went in, did my flats, and everything was a select and fill tool. Mm-hmm. So I didn't go back to do any blend, no nothing. So it was kind of like me trying to practice that aspect of it and own it until I could go in and do more like I did with the Skull Busters here, where you see there's more of a mix of hard and soft edges, tune shading, painter lead. There's a bit of everything in that one, and that's where I'm at now.
Yeah,
like you practice different style, then you just go and experiment. And it's great to have friends like Beacon, Scotsman, Ritter that's there too. Yeah, everybody definitely. Just come in and go like, hey, your colors are shit, you should do this better. And then you're like, oh yeah, you're right.
Well, that's great. Kyle, a question from the chat. Kyle says, which color mode do you use? Oh, actually, someone asked a little earlier, do you color in CMYK or RGB? And last week we talked about that. And I think the majority of us color in RGB, but we toggle on the proof color mode back and forth just to make sure we're not using colors that won't print in CMYK.
Yeah.
So a constant proofing, going and proofing and turning it off and on.
Yeah, my setup is a little odd because the computer I work on, it can't, for some reason, it can't handle switching between RGB and CMYK or doing anything like that. So I have to take it to the other computer, which can't handle me working on the page to get it to go to CMYK. So, yeah.
And I'll say something too. It's when you start practicing and doing all those little things that you start going, you know what? I need a colors. So yeah.
Blue Samurai says, did you say over distance light reduces its in energy or frequency? Energy, right? I think I misheard you. What I was saying is light photons, they have a certain amount of vibration to them. As they get emitted, they bounce. Every time they hit something, they bounce. And every time they get refracted, they lose intensity, right? So whenever a light photon hits something off in the distance, it gets a little softer. And as the light photons bounce around and come towards your eye, the further away, the longer the distance they traveled, the cooler they get. The intensity decreases. So that's why things that are so far away look cooler, and things that are close to you, they've refracted only a few times, and you get more of an intense color, like more warmth.
And like the example I just gave you and Cal suggested, you can also play with that. I did the opposite of it, and it also worked.
Oh, it does work, absolutely.
And the reason
you
was
can use
because
color to tell stories, and what you did there by making the characters who are dead in the foreground cool is you establish them as an element in the scene, but you didn't take focus off the character who was in the background, right?
Yep.
You zoomed focus, and everybody's eye passed by those characters who were dead in the foreground to the background where Vincent is, kind of hunched over, like, yeah, motherfucker.
I wonder if we have a tool in the Clip Studio that does the same thing in Photoshop for the color selection thing for the CYMK and RGB.
Maybe.
I wonder.
I
don't know.
Clip doesn't work in CMYK. It's set automatically to work in RGB. You can play with it. Yeah, there are ways to do it, but Clip doesn't like you doing it.
Well, so let me ask this: ink spots. What is your coloring style?
You know I'm a painter. You know. No.
I know. It's really, I just figured for the audience's benefit, we just get it out there.
Yeah, I like to do a more paintery approach. I absolutely hate cut and grad. So. I think it's so old school, and so. But I just never got used to it. I don't like the. You know what it is for me? I don't like the lines that it leaves when you cut and grad, and so my brain can't handle it.
You like really smooth blends, right?
I like smooth transitions. Well, not even that. I like if I'm gonna do a transition, I like let's see, texture in the transition. So I like it like that. So let me. Oh, is it my turn now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry guys.
We got a whole thing.
Dude, I've been awake like 10 minutes. So
it's all good. All good.
So I think I can show this page now that Cecil kind of showed it on the stream. And to go with Kyle Ritter's question, I use pretty much all different blending modes. It just depends. So on the situation.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, if you guys look down at my palette setup, you'll see right here I have flats. I have I like to keep everything in separate folders. I actually work on one panel at a time. I don't usually which makes it a little harder too. I don't usually make global changes for all the panels at one time. So I have a folder for each panel as they're layered.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Vinny.
Hey.
Welcome to Vinny Cardamel.
King of Vinny.
Oh, I like that. Thank you.
And so let's get rid of all these.
Now, before you roll forward, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you pick and brush, or do you go to the color picker and pick a color specifically? Because as you're laying colors down, you'll get blends. That'll be a lighter color of a value that's different. Maybe eyedropper select and color pick from your work as you're working.
I color pick from my work, and then when you color pick, you lose a little saturation, and so I'll usually color pick and then up the saturation just a little bit. And then I use lots of different blending modes too. So let's see. So let's start. We got the flats. We went over those last week. So I have a layer down here from my flats. After I do my flats, I do a texture layer, which I will get a generic texture off the internet. The purpose of this is not like, see that wood floor texture there? It looks like garbage. I'm not leaving it like that. This is very low res, and not only is it low res, it's also blurred out. I'll do a Gaussian blur because I don't want you to look at this and just see, because I've seen art that just looks like this. They just leave it like this, cut and paste the texture in. The only reason I do texture like this is usually for like if there's a pattern on something Like if I had wallpaper or something, I'll get a low res and then blur it out and put it in there. But the secret is I'm going to paint over all this later. Most of this is not going to be there. It's a starting point to get some kind of a texture in my artwork. So, but that's where I'll start. And I don't care what you think about it. And I'll use various, usually I'll use an overlay. I think I use a color burn here because it gave me a little bit of value in the carpet. So I did that. After that, so what I'm thinking about here is, let me get a file, new layer, new file. Okay. So you have an object. Let me get a different freaking brush. Dude, I wish I would have woke up on time so my brain would be all here right now.
I hear you, man.
I was planning on doing this all week, and I just.
To be fair, Inks, I'm not really noticing any difference.
You're always a little retarded.
It's just me, man.
You feel like a regular retarded to me. Okay, so get a new layer, Mother Hubbard. Don't you hate it how Photoshop gives you that locked layer, but the layer's not locked? You can still fucking draw on it. Fix that, Photoshop. That's so stupid. Okay.
Yeah, but you have a love-hate relationship with Photoshop, as I said.
I do. I mean, you know what I have a hate relationship with Photoshop is the damn updates. I was good when they hit Photoshop 5.5, and then they just kept going, and stuff got more and more complicated. So I was good.
Right.
Okay. The first thing I'm going to say is if you guys are going to color, I get hotkeys just programmed to my Wacom. Like I have a button here, so if I go side to side, my brush gets bigger or smaller. If I go up and down, the hardness goes from, the hardness of the brush goes from.
Yeah, keep telling us about the hardness.
So
I've got
down,
visions
up
of
and
you
down.
standing up and down and jiggling around now just to get your brush right.
Yeah, you can also get one of these people out there.
Yeah, there you
This
go.
is a remote that you can macro in actions, command keys, that kind of stuff.
And
Yeah.
if you're on,
like-
if you use Clip Studio, you get one called a TabMate, which is Clip Studio's version of that. I can't recommend them enough. Like they speed shit up so much, it's incredible.
Yeah, get your
I need to get Scotsman to come over here and set my computer up the proper way.
Fly me to NYC and I'll do it.
Well, you have to come to Florida, not New York.
Oh, that's right. You're down south. Same thing. Same thing.
All right, so you got a scene here with the circle in it. I'm gonna get some color underneath. Let's make that a different color.
I'm getting an art boner, Spotty.
It's happening live right now.
He's making a circle now, guys. It's a circle. It's very complicated.
Tell us
Bob
more about
Spots.
it. I like the circles. Circles are hot. Anyone else get like lose a fucking file on their computer completely?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's one specifically I'm looking for. I can't find it for the life of me, and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, I had that yesterday. I saved a TIFF in a file, and I can look on my computer, and the file's there. But then when I try to open it in a program, it's not there.
Oh
And I'm
shit!
What
That's even worse.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah, so I work with my iCloud all the time. I just save right to the cloud. Everything, nothing is local. Everything's in the cloud. If my house blew up, all my art would be safe.
Damn.
Come on, you mother.
That's good.
Oh yeah, I don't do that. I don't believe in the cloud. I have several different hard drives. They're all different backups, and I bury them in the garden. So if the house does explode, I've still got them all safe.
Great. But if somebody comes over and they blow up your garden, then you're fucked.
Then I'm all right because I've still got some in my house.
Hard drive don't do well with humidity in the ground, right? Just saying.
I can cope with that. I'm an ex-chef for many, many years. I know how to deal with humidity.
Fair enough.
Look at this shit, like right in front of us. Color picking from the piece, doing blends.
Look at this guy.
Oh my god.
Like a fucking wizard.
I can only get so hard, ink spots. Okay, I've only got enough blood in my body to run my brain or my dick. I can't do both.
Beautiful. I like it when you said dick. That was my favorite part.
Load.
Sorry for using the hard D there.
I would have had this all set up already, but dude, Vinny, I was late too. I freaking slept way late.
See,
Yeah, I wasn't home. I was racing home.
It's like watching one of those looping artists, where they make a beat in front of you and then they sing and then they do their thing. So we're watching it, it's good.
Okay. So what we got here, when you're approaching a painting, you're thinking about, when I approach it, I got my flat colors, and now it's all about lighting. Once my flat colors are down, I'm not really thinking about color picking a whole lot. I'm thinking about how a light affects things, because really all color is the light bouncing off an object, bouncing back to your eyes, and that's what you're seeing. It's all rays. That's all it is. And so when light comes, if you got a light source up here, which is the sun, the light comes from the sun, bam, and it's not just one. There's a lot. I mean, these things are just coming. And in a directional light, all this light is coming, and it's hitting the object.
Coming hard, coming explosively.
So, so the light that comes and hits that object, all these light rays are bouncing off, like Scotsman said. The light's all bouncing back at you. It's hitting, bouncing back. This is what you're seeing. So why you see yellow is all the other light is being absorbed by this object. It's all going inside of this. The only light that's bouncing back are the yellow light rays, and that's what you're seeing. Okay? So, and then also, directional light, boom, it's hitting. Okay? So, this is a circle, right? This part of the circle is actually closer to you. It's closer to your eyes. So like Scotsman said, as light gets farther away from you, it gets weaker. So a light beam that hits here, it's gonna show up to your eyes stronger. But as it go further down the curve, the light that hits down here is weaker because this is farther away than this light beam right here. This is shorter.
So what you're saying is that circle is being a jerk.
Yeah. So that's the reason why things get darker as they go away from you, because this is closer and this is farther away from you. And so when the light hits it, this part is brighter. And then as it moves away from you, it still gets a little bit, but not as much.
It just gets the tip.
It just hits a tip. So that's why you have highlights, and that's why you have, shadow.
That's right.
And so, okay, so that gets weaker. And as the light gets down here at the bottom of it gets to a point where the light can't get in here at all. So this down here, you're going to have no light at all. Ambient occlusion. It's complete absence. Not complete absence, but it's the absence of light. No light can get in there. No light can bounce up, and no light can hit it directional. And so you're getting just the shadow. Mm-hmm. So that's what makes shadows. Okay, so that's just basic whatever crap. But it's good to know.
I'll tell you what, Spotty, I'll give you... So when I studied graphic design, part of my graphic design degree was also studying print and how to physically go about doing it, but I also had to study optical biology. So I did I think it was a year. It wasn't just a semester. I had to do a whole year when I was studying optical biology. And you've explained that way better than, in a very short period of time, way better than many of my actual lecturers could do it.
Why, thank you, my friend.
We're going to call you Professor Inkspots now.
Ooh.
Professor Inkspots.
Prof Inks, yes.
So let's make another colored ball here.
I want sticky spots.
What was that?
I like my
Sticky
balls
spots.
to be two
Sticky
different
spots.
colors. Okay, so when I'm
spots.
so let's say this is a comic. You guys are fuck me up.
Sorry,
I'm fucking myself up. It doesn't matter.
we're all a bunch of fuck ups.
It's like nothing works when you're trying to do something. Like the program right now is just being a bitch. It's not wanting to work. So we say this is our comic panel, right?
Mhm.
Bam. Those are, amazing artists has drawn this for you to color, and you look at it and you go, what the hell? Okay, well, I'm just gonna color it. Anyway, so we get in here, and so the first thing I do is what's the lighting situation? So the lighting situation here is we've got a blue sky, and we got a directional light, which is the sun. Make it more yellow. Okay. So the blue sky is basically what I call a fill light. What a fill light is, it's a very diffused light. It's not super bright, and it's shining down. So you got the sky is shining all this blue light down on all the objects down here. So a lot of times people are struggling with what color should I make my shadows? Well, your shadow is going to be the color of whatever your diffused light is. So you'll have two light sources. So the light in the sky is a diffused light. So everything in the shadow is going to tint a little bit blue. And the reason that is because of the bouncing. So the skylight's shooting straight down, and all these beams are like all over. They're not coming down directional. They're just bouncing off everything in the scene.
They're coming everywhere.
Yeah, they're going everywhere.
Everywhere.
Ropes.
Coming all over everything.
They're just coming, and they can't help it. And so,
Light cocky.
Like
A bit too mature too, but
fucking beacon, like cocky. Okay.
okay, and so, motherfucker.
Oh, that's classic.
That's brilliant.
So what I do is I get myself a multiply layer. I'm going to get a blue sky color. And I'm going to take that multiply layer. I'm going to cover everything in my scene. And then I like to either turn turn that layer's opacity down to between 25 and 30%. Okay, basically what I have here is this is the whole scene is in diffuse light. So there's a base color. This is all diffuse light. So basically this whole scene right now would be like if it was under a canopy outside, but it's sunny, but that canopy is covering everything, and you're just getting the diffuse light from the sun coming down, hitting the ground and bouncing up underneath that canopy to kind of light things up, but not real bright. So this is a diffuse light. So that's always my first layer. This also helps to harmonize the whole layer. The whole layer is now harmonized because every color in this panel has blue in it, the same blue color. So it can't help but push all those colors closer to gray. And the gray area of color is where you can mix all the different colors and get a nice blend. Because all the colors on the color wheel, if you're going to go to a blue to a red on this color wheel right here, you have to go all the way around this color wheel to get to that red over there. But if you bring these colors closer to gray, you can go in the middle. So if you bring red closer to gray and blue closer to gray, they harmonize better. There's less of the color in it and more of the gray, and they have that in common. So everything will work together better, and you're going to get less of a muddy feeling if you work your shadows in sort of a gray color. That's why shadows are usually darker and less saturated. So now after I do that, what I'll do is now I know that I have a directional light in this scene. I have the sun. So I'm going to get a yellow color. I'm going to turn my next layer to a overlay layer. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. And what I like to do is I'll just kind of put the general shape of the object in there. And I'm going to go back with a textured eraser. And then I'm going to start erasing out. Because remember what I said, these over here, as you get further around the circumference of the circle, you're getting less and less light. And the light's only really hitting right here in the middle. So you just kind of round out your object with your eraser. And then I even have a nice textured blender here to help me pull. I use a smudge blender. So we're kind of getting some roundness here. I'm doing this real fast, but you can spend like way too much time doing this. You're going to keep. So we get the directional light kind of put in here. And then there's a couple things. The overlay layer is good because it actually works kind of like real light. And so what happens is if I got a yellow light, come on. Sorry, thing will not work. It's like so buggy right now.
You can slap it around a bit.
Yeah.
It's like, did you see it like changed on me? So if you got a yellow object and that yellow object is hit with a yellow light, you're going to go up in saturation. So usually you're going to get a more saturated color because the light that's hitting this object is the same color as it, so it intensifies. But if I had a blue object, the blue object is on the other end of the color wheel. So the yellow light's way over here. The blue light's way over here. Okay. So if I got this blue and I want to make it look like a yellow light hits it, and I'm going to use the color wheel instead of these blend modes, which always use the blend modes if you can help it to at least get your color started because it's going to make it go a lot faster. But the way I would do it if I'm painting is, all right, so I know I got yellow light hitting this, so I'm going to go from where I'm at blue, and I'm going to shift this hue a little bit towards yellow. So I'm not like shooting all the way over to yellow. I'm just shooting up a little bit towards the yellow spectrum. But now I know that this color of the light is the opposite color of what I'm painting, so I have to shift this over towards gray.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you guys understand? Because it's the opposite. Yeah. Okay, so you're not going to get more intense color. You're going to get a more dull color. And so...
Yeah, that makes sense. Although, after watching you, I feel like I'm on the spectrum. You guys get so clinical and technical.
And
you
so
have,
even though this is...
You all lost me a long time ago with all this artsy talk. I just see a man playing with his balls.
I'm gonna make it make more sense. I just wanted to throw out what I...
It sounds like Imspot has spent a lot of time coloring balls. I'm sure he has a lot of satisfied customers. Wink.
Yeah. You see what you want to see. You see what you want to see. You know what I mean?
And so even though this color is still way in the blue side, you can look at it and you can still kind of see like it has a yellow tint to it. And that's because we shifted towards the yellow and then decrease the saturation. So then what I like to do is I got that overlay layer on here. If I can freaking find it. We'll get to the comic stuff in just a second, guys. I didn't even change that layer.
No, this is important because we're talking about rendering styles, right? And yours is painterly. And this is something that is very elusive to a lot of people. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always thinking about this stuff in my brain while I'm doing it. And I'm just one of those kind of person where I want to know how everything works. It's like you can't just show me something. I want to know why it does it. And that's just how I am. So a little trick I do to make it look like direct sunlight is I got one overlay layer and then I'll just duplicate it.
Oh, so you're going to hate me.
And so that does like that gives you a more intense. So it kind of gives you got your direct sunlight and then you got your shadow side of the object. And that's like the most basic, coloring. You got your light side, your dark side. This is where most people are going to start out. And then after what happens is you got this light. So you got the my brain needs to work. So you got the yellow light, and some of this yellow light is hitting the object. Some of it is missing. It's hitting the ground. Some of this light's going to bounce back up on this object. So it comes down, the yellow light hits the ground, bounces back up into the shadow side. And that's why I did that first layer multiply, because some of that blue light's bouncing up there, but some of this yellow light is going to bounce up there too. But it's going to be less intense. It's going to be...
But wouldn't it be like a mix of blue and the purple of the ground?
Yeah, so you can shift it a little bit towards the purple color. The one main rule you're going to want to do is you want to make it never can be the shadow side of an object. A bounce light can never be brighter than anything on the light side.
Right.
So you got right here, that's a 95% brightness. And so, like, say the weakest light is 64. I always look at my hue, saturation, brightness. On the brightness here, the weakest light is at 64. And so the light on the shadow side has to be less. It can never be as bright as the weakest light on the light side. That's a rule you're always going to have to remember. Nothing on the shadow side can become even... It has to be less than what's on the light side. Keep your shadow side and your dark side apart from each other. You have to be, and then in the middle, you're going to have, once you get your shadows and your light sorted out, you can come back in and you can put a little bit of your base tone in the middle. So,
question, ink spots.
Yeah.
Is there a specific name given to that ring right there where the light sources change? That ring,
The ball ring.
Oh, are you trying to talk about the Terminator? That's what it's called. It's a point of no return, basically, where the light comes down and it's hitting there, it's hitting there, it's hitting there, but then right here, that's the outer edge of the object, so the light just passes right by it. So that's a Terminator. No light can go below that line.
And that's what the art edge would be, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of illustrators will draw that in. That's the when they're rendering, that's where the light can't go by. And so a lot of time on comic art, that's already, a lot of this information is already drawn in by the illustrator. And then you just have to enhance it. Like it's things like drop shadows, like this light would be hitting and there'd be some kind of a drop shadow in here, you know. But that's already drawn for you a lot of times. So if it's not, you can add it. Okay. So back to real comic book coloring. And so I got this color harmony layer. This is something that I lay over the whole deal. So I have a just a blue color, and that's all the ambient light, just kind of lighten everything up. So that's the shadow side. And then each panel, my rendering, I have in its own layer. And so right here, I have the different lights. I like to separate them out. So I have sunlight shooting in from the door. And the only thing that's really hitting is the floor and Cecil and maybe this guy's face right here. There's a blue light coming out of that door that's lighting her, putting her in a back, giving her a silhouette to pop her out. Oh, that was the lettering. Sometimes they make you. So then I put a purple light. These are spotlights. They're in a strip club, so we got a spotlight hitting there. I put the psycho guy with a knife in there just for fun. Oh, here's a few things you're not going to see. This stuff.
Michael Myers.
You're not going to see any of this other stuff, any of this stuff in print, probably because it's too small. So we got a Graveyard Shift T-shirt on this guy here. On the stripper, her back right there says Peaches, which is Anna's boyfriend. Back here, we threw in. You got a little Ethan Van Sciver in the picture frame back here.
You're adding all this, are you?
Yeah, I'm adding all this. Yeah. I added a little Rainbow Brute that I painted in this TV back there.
Nice.
So we got some little extras in there. All right, that's what I did on the texture layer too. So then we got a blue light that's kind of another spotlight coming down that's kind of shining in the middle here. So I lit this guy up with the blue light. if you got a lot of lights in a panel, it's good to keep them separated because things can get mixed up real fast.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then we got another purple light right there. And then I put a light in the back to light the background up.
The buffet.
So that's like one whole panel. I just do it in sections. So I always think about light. So you just think about your light sources. Same thing there. I just separated each light. I have a sunlight that's bouncing on these guys, and then a blue light that's coming in from the side. So I have, let's get another layer. So I have my yellow light that's coming in, hitting this wall, and then kind of bouncing back out onto the floor and to the characters and giving me a little bit of a rim light. And then I have a blue light that's I have a blue light that's coming in this direction at a, and hitting this, light in the other side. That's another thing when you're coloring. It's always good to have a cool side and a warm side. It'll make stuff look cool. Always make stuff look cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we got 7 and 9. He's got only a blue light on him in that panel. And then the bottom panel, I just did a purple light on everything. And then, especially in my style, what I'll do is I'll do a line over a layer over the line work, and I'll add special effects. So I got the stink lines coming off the sushi that Cecil's gobbling up like a big pig, and that's basically that's how I color. I don't know if it helped you guys. And at the end, I'll do a adjustment layer where I'll adjust the curves, the color temperature, everything slightly if it needs it. So. I don't know. I mean, I was bumbling, guys. I'm sorry, but hopefully.
No, it's great.
So not only did you get to know how and the technique that he uses, but also a tutorial.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So the painterly style is really elusive, and as you can see, there's a lot of different brushes. There's a lot of different overlays. There's a lot of different things that go into Inkspot style. It's very rich. There's a lot of detail. So. I see about 20 different techniques being deployed all at once to arrive where you're at there.
Yeah, and it's all in your head. A lot of times it's hard to explain what you're doing. Mm-hmm. One thing I did do with Cecil's book is I have my own special set of brushes that I made. So learning how to do your own brushes. You see I have brushes that have a lot of texture in them. And as you can see here, a lot of the way I get this is I will lay down and then I'll come back in with a textured eraser like this and slowly scrape it away so I can, as it's going around the object, you're also getting from light to dark, but you're also getting a nice texture. And I love texture in my work. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the real smooth style.
Comes through as well. Your reveal local color back.
And see, you can zoom way in. This looks. One thing you got to learn about art is you have to step back from it. It's the same thing with paintings. When you see those giant paintings, if you're standing up close, you can't see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we always paint larger than it's going to print. Because when this gets down to their print size, you can see like some of the transition and texture, but the whole picture comes into focus as things shrink down. So I guess that would be any questions that I might be able to answer. I don't know.
What do you use to scrape off your knob cheese?
Oh, my knob cheese? I usually just use whichever towel my wife uses to wipe her face.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Great. This is all information. All great information.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
And as a colorist, you're working in different styles. I don't always work. This is a more cartoony style, on Dawn. And this is like a more realistic. So you get.
That is a good point. That is a good point. And something I said in the beginning of the show, identifying not just your coloring style, but other coloring styles you should learn so that you can deploy those on line arts that it might be more appropriate for. Like you said, Donald DeLay's and your coloring styles synergize very well together because he leaves a lot of openness and lets you render, right?
Yep. And so on this is a project called Blaster Kid, which Richard Friend, who's big time inker. He's worked for all the mainstream guys. He's doing his own book, and he put out an open call. So I went ahead and colored one of his images for that real quick. But he does prefer kind of a smoother, so even when you don't like to do something, you're still going to have to do it sometimes. So he likes a more smoother coloring style. So that's what I did on this. Plus, he's a more detailed artist. And so, yeah, you have to do different styles to fit the line work you're working with.
And,
So,
and to complement them.
yeah. So,
A lot of black shadow shapes in there that you gotta kind of work around.
yep. So, anyway, that's how I do it, guys.
That's great.
Excellent.
So next we have Vinny Tartamella.
Oh shit.
What is your rendering style?
I have a painterly style, but I do play around. So a lot of like what Inkspots was saying, like I'll do similar type of approaches, but I don't get as technical like with certain things. Like usually, I will actually let me share. What I'll tend to do is I kind of go, since I study a lot from life anyway. I have a lot of that stuff in my head. So when he's talking about how the light is hitting things and bouncing off of stuff, I'll back up a little bit. So yeah, so the piece in particular.
Thank you for backing up.
You're welcome.
Beep, 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 beep,
I
beep.
had started this on one of Sim streams a while ago, and this is the one I was having difficulty trying to find where the hell I put my the actual file, but I found it. So yeah, this is from City of Venus, one of my characters, and what is it, Doodle and Chill? It was one of those
Amazing
Yeah,
character.
it was.
Amazing character.
beautiful characters. So with this, I do tend to like a lot of cool and warm colors. So I decided with something like this, I was going to keep it simple since it's sort of more like a pinup style. And I did a nice sky. I usually start with backgrounds, and then I paint my way up. So I'll have it on a multiply layer, and that's usually where I kind of drop my my flats, and then I'll get in there and do new layers to start to like bump up. And usually I'll paint right over my work. That's kind of the approach that I do on these. So something like this. Layer.
So do you color over pencils or do you ink your stuff?
I do both. It depends on what the piece is. This one, it was kind of tight lines anyway, but with this one, I'll probably go a little more painterly with it. As you can still see how rough the actual face is. The line work. I mean, if you get up closer, you could see that it's still like it's got all that texture and shit from the pencils.
Yeah.
Typically, for something like this, I would do more of a paint over because I want a very, very clean approach to it. But like going over what Inkspots was saying, like playing with light sources is kind of important. And I usually go like I'll do the hair since it's selected right now anyway. I'll go in there and I'll start putting in my shadows. So if the light source is coming from like where my name is and coming downward. If it's coming down this way, like all the lighting, because I'll have I usually think of things while I'm working on it. Two different light sources, so you can see the one that's in the actual image, and that's where we get like some room lighting on her over here. But I'm thinking about the shadowing that's going to happen anyway. And since I'm going to have another light source, like Inkspots was saying, it's not as strong like on her cheeks here, but you can see it more on the rim lighting since that's going to be a stronger light. Because I'll usually bump that up when I'm getting closer towards like finishing it up. I have most of it in my head what I want to do, where I'm going to go with it. So that's kind of the cool thing about it. But yeah, so typically I'll be thinking about stuff like that, and then because her hair is a little bit lighter. So since she's more of like dirty blonde or like a light-haired brunette, I'll do it like in sections too. So like I know where the light's coming from, and I'll lower my opacity. That's what I usually do. And I kind of do it almost like in chunks at first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to get super clean with it right now, but Yeah, I'll do it kind of bigger like that, and then I'll change my the tip of the brush so I get like those finer lines. And typically I'll go in there further like that and make it, press it either a little bit harder, or I'll bump up the opacity a bit, since the light source, it's you want it lighter exactly like where it's hitting, and you kind of fan out a bit. So
Yeah.
typically, like when you see somebody like putting highlights in, they would normally do like a new layer. They'll put it on screen. They'll put it on screen. They'll fill black, and then something like this. I got presets in here. You could go soft, or even put like a glow on it. So this brush, you're essentially setting it to linear dodge,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could come in here and hit it even further, and you see like how much more it's popping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff.
Linear dodge is one of the greatest blend modes ever. If you don't know linear dodge, get acquainted with it. Yeah,
for sure.
If you take away the blending mode there, you're painting you are painting. This is much more like a traditional or an analog style of laying color.
Right.
Certainly going from large to small and blocking in, and then bringing the detail, adding the detail as you're going along.
Exactly. It's stuff like that. So mine is, I guess, a little bit more straightforward. Like Captain was saying. Yeah, so I don't think it's overly complicated. It's just if you know what you're doing and you study a lot, study the world, study how shadow bounces off of things.
Yeah.
What was that?
So practice.
Yeah, it's the practicing, but at the same time too, like when it starts to get more complicated, and you're gonna have different light sources if you're inside versus outside. There's gonna be a lot of different things going on. Like even like with this background, like I need to put a whole lot more in here, and typically what I would do. I haven't touched this file in forever, so you gotta bear in mind with me where I have what. So usually, if it's like background stuff, if you want to give it extra pop and things of that nature, I will play with how I do color. Since a lot of people, like, if this isn't inked traditionally, you're gonna have a different feel of what you're doing with your blacks and painting. Your eye doesn't normally see like pure black. It has more like shades of blue in it, or even purple. Mm-hmm. So like I would grab a color that's kind of similar to this. I eyeball everything basically, and I kind of mess around from there. But back to brush. Like I would come in.
So you're going to lasso out a selection there.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll leave the lasso it out, or I don't even have this one on. Usually I'll have the other lasso, but it's just kind of getting in there quick.
Right.
But yeah, so I'll grab something like that, and then I'll start like putting in a little bit extra just to give it some pop. So we could have like another color, another light source somewhere that's maybe not as strong, but just to give it a little bit extra. I mean, you could go pure black. It depends on what you're going for and what you want to pop out. So if I want to push something further back or make it look like it's a little bit closer, that's when I'll play with that stuff. So like if it's really far away, I'll go with like this kind of lighter color. But if it's going to be more in the foreground, I'll go a little bit darker. So like where her hand is, I might go a little bit darker on that top part, and then down here go a little bit lighter, because maybe that's more like where that light's it's coming from underneath a bit. And like even on her, like,
see, you use it. That's ambient light bouncing up. It's just in your brain, man. You already know it.
well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of playing with all that stuff.
Yep.
So like I'm going sloppy here, but it's typically the same thing. So like I'll come in there and again, I'll go opacity is something I always mess around with. So if that's too harsh, I'll get a brush where I'll have more like softer edges on it to get a better blend. But I'll typically I'll use like the round brush, like the regular standard one. Again, I since the style I'm doing, it's all about the opacity to kind of bring it down a bit. And if things are looking too harsh, I'll lighten it up. Get in there with a smaller one, and you'll start to see a little bit more happening. But
do you ever use your blender tool? You know the smudge. I think it's smudge they call it on Photoshop.
Here and there. I'll do it. Actually, I'll do it more with actual lines. Like, so if I get a real clean looking painting, but I'll have something that is like line work that's a little bit sloppy. It's going over too much. I'll take the smudge tool and I'll smudge out the line a little bit, so it looks more like it's shadowing that's blended better into like that kind of that painted look. Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, more or less. And since I should have, again, I'm moving quicker, but I should have probably just had that on my swatches, because that's what I'll do. Like if I'm doing a big section, I'll grab like that similar color that I know I'm going to use. Like it's going to be on most of the shadowing on the piece. I'll make a swatch for it. Yeah. So it's easier for me, and I don't lose the color, because then trying to match up colors is a fucking pain in the ass too.
Yeah.
But it's more or less like you'll get that kind of approach. And if it's too dark, again, if you're playing with different layers, you could even lighten it up a bit. Depends on what you're going for, what you're looking for. Again, in the overall like painting style that you want to achieve on this. But yeah, it's more or less what I do. Here's one I did with First D. So this was that contest.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This was during the War Campaign contest. So this was about 2 hours of work from the lines, and then I started painting it. And I haven't touched it since that day. So you'll see, since I did it all digital, there are no like really sketchy pencil lines in there. So it's a little bit more bold. So it's something like this. Like I did that technique because I knew it was going to be quicker, but I still didn't really have the time I thought I would to finish it.
I love his glasses. So great. It's like old man glasses. He's all, let me have a look at this.
You're giving him such bright eyes too. Like he's just so gleeful right there.
He's a little high on coke. But he's starting off for ass.
Coke and whiskey.
But,
he's got a beanie on too. I like that.
Yeah, it's that weird mask. Yeah, like again, I was working quick, so I didn't have proper reference. And I know he had that one that had, what was it, like the mesh over the eye part, but he kept it like rolled up. I don't know.
It's a skiing beanie. It folds down so you can wear it when you're skiing.
Yeah, so the way he had it up was all different, but.
I love the fact that he's looking right at you, going, "This is normal. This is perfectly normal." Why are you looking at me?
It sure is.
I don't know what you're talking.
That's more. You want one?
But see, like, something like this too. Like, you got to play with like lighting and stuff. So like the glasses, you want nice reflective light happening. Again, I work quicker on this. So what I would probably have done, or I could still do.
For everybody out in the chat, if you're looking for talking about glass lighting, you want to look up caustic rendering.
I would select this color. That's her bright bikini, and I would actually come in there a little bit and start putting some of that on there, because I think it'd be
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's
getting a reflection in there of her titty.
Bikini.
You could do that.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't draw him boss-eyed.
Dude, this was during the contest, so it was very quick how I had it work.
Yeah, I know.
That's a lot to get done in 2 hours. Even what you got done, that's crazy.
Oh yeah, I was damn proud of that. I don't even remember how we were doing, what we were talking about. I was just like, this is looking great.
Yeah, we weren't paying attention to the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're too busy too trying to, fight off certain douchebags.
Yep.
And their dumb attacks. But yeah, so I gotta play with my opacity.
That was the episode where Doodlebags did Cecil on a throne, wasn't it?
I think
Yeah,
so.
it's the one that they told everybody vote for Doodlebags no matter what. It was
Right.
that one.
Narwhal, he had that.
I was not invited to that one.
Is that the one where Donald drew that gigantic dick on Cecil? It was like 3 foot
think it was.
around circumference.
Oh my god. Yeah. Wait, I think that was Malin who drew that.
Yeah, Donald did one, and he had a sign over like most of it, but that said "Vote for Malin," and then out the bottom there's like this huge dong hanging down with the veins and everything.
It's all about the subject matter.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Gotta stay true to the source material.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that's too strong, but you get the idea of what I've been doing and
Yeah.
kind of how I've been working it. But I'll get in there. I'll erase it a little bit too. Good stuff. If it's too strong, but yeah, I just I mess around like that. But again, I kind of know what I'm doing, or I know what's. You got to work with what's in the image, but you see how much more like it pops already. Just having the kind of reflective light, and since he's going to be, he's in a strip joint. Like the lighting I'll put on here is going to be a little bit extra as well, and then it's going to be like playing with reflective light as well, like off of the breast, off of like you can see on the skin tone on his hands, like where the light source is kind of coming from. But
yeah, there'll be a little ass bounce light going on.
And it's a lot of crazy cool stuff, but remember, study things, study textures, how light reflects and works with wood versus metal.
Mm-hmm.
Metal, you're usually going to have, if you want something to really pop that's metal, you put light against dark. The contrast gives that extra shine. It's going to really bounce even more and look more realistic.
I was going to add that as well. Yeah, like I know this is a show about digital colors and coloring comic books, but the same way that life drawing is kind of the root, the grassroots, the blood of any real academic drawing. Like you need to learn to draw from life. So I think for me, it's exactly the same with colors. Like just use your eyes all the time, no matter what you're doing. Just look at things, see what's going on. Don't just play with digital colors either. Buy yourself a cheap pack of markers or watercolors, whatever it is. And whatever, if I know Scotsman said previously on streams that he flats while shitting. If you're sitting watching if you're sitting watching the TV, just doodle and play with markers and see what you do. I'm constantly doing something. Even if I'm not actually sitting down to concentrate on it, I'm constantly playing with something, and I've got boxes of markers and all sorts, and pastels and oil pastels and chalk pastels and all sorts of shit lying around the house. So I'm constantly playing with them, trying to find ways to manipulate light. Yeah, just always be at it.
That's it, man. I mean, as an artist, you have to do that.
And never be ashamed to look up reference. I see all kinds of stuff about people saying that you're used reference. Yeah, that's because you're smart. Use reference. If you don't know how something looks, if you're looking for a specific lighting situation, find reference, tons of reference, see how it works, and use it in your artwork.
Yep.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could use reference, study reference. Don't trace and don't select and take, like, if you want a photo of a sky or something and just fucking drop it in the background. That's cheap. That's horrible. If you're on a crazy deadline, it's another kind of story, but at the same time...
Or there's pictures, 3D models with filters. The goddamn filters. It's fucking...
Yeah, or if you're going to use it like as just a texture. There shouldn't be much left of it at the end. Paint over it, make it your own. Don't just drop a sky in from... some random internet search.
Because then I agree with the thing, right? If somebody's just, to me it's the equivalent of tracing other people's work.
Yeah.
someone, if you grab the photo off somewhere online, that's someone's artwork, and you're stealing that. You know.
I would say one caveat. The difference between producing work that's you're calling your own and doing study. If you want to learn how to draw like J. Scott Campbell, trace his faces 1,000 times and then set it aside and draw your own. Right?
See, no, I'm against that as well. I'm against that as well. Why would you want to draw on someone else's style? What I would say is, like the Disney artist, learn to draw from life. Draw realistic first. Once you draw realistic, you could draw anything.
And me, I would add the fact of like not trace over that's Jeffrey Scott Campbell, but try to break it down into the shapes that he's using. His way behind it more than trying to trace it.
I'm not talking in terms of just tracing to trace. I'm talking about building your shapes toolbox in your brain. Building your forms.
I get it, but usually when you do stuff like that, it gets you into like you'll get like Al Garcia that draws exactly like fucking Jeffrey Scott Campbell. That's the thing that we're trying to to say, that you need to try and break apart from it. Get what you like from it, study what you like from it, but then try to apply it to your own way.
Right. Especially, I mean, if you are if you're into Comicsgate and the independent scene in general, you're not looking to emulate someone else's style.
Yeah.
If you are, then you're trying to do a house style, and maybe you're looking to do stuff more like along the lines of Marvel and DC or whatnot, which is fine if that's what you're looking to do. But typically if you're over here and you're watching this, you are thinking about working your own style, doing your own thing, and I wouldn't do that kind of stuff. Now, if there's certain techniques that you enjoy, if like a David Finch or a Greg Capullo, you like that type of a style of how they do shadowing, lighting, and it's the way that they work with their pencil line work. Again, they're doing it a certain way for the colorist. Who's going to work over their stuff. So like they're putting that cross hatching in. They're doing things along those lines to show depth in their 2D line work. So it is a different story altogether. Yeah. But yeah, I would not trace off of anyone's work. If you want to study their lines, you want to see how they do certain things, I'm okay with that. But if you want to keep like your own integrity and artistically speaking, and you want to grow and develop your own style, I would say study from life. Lighting, shadow, stuff like that. You could get tips and technique for structure from other people. I'm down with that. Tips on how they render certain things, cool. But don't try to steal someone's style. That's you don't want to go down that road, because a lot of those people, they keep going down that road, and then they start to just say, oh, fuck it, I'm in on the time crunch, so I'm going to start tracing over people's stuff.
And if you do it long enough, you get stuck into it. Like you hear a lot of people that are like, dude, I can't stop. Every time I draw, it says Jeffrey Scott Campbell or Turner, because that's all they've done.
I would add to that. Don't necessarily get hung up, because the word style gets thrown around a lot in art, not just in comic book art, but in all art. Don't get hung up on what your style is. Just allow it to develop. It will develop on its own. Exactly. Like even if you are, like Vinny's saying, or like Scott was saying, if you are focusing on trying to draw like somebody, at some point while you go down that journey, you're going to do a drawing, and you're going to go, I didn't draw this.
Yep.
And then you're going to be forced to have to go down another route. Then that's okay. In my mind, that's okay, as long as you get to the point where you change it up, because the number of times if you keep changing it up, your style will develop out of that. If you get hung up on developing a style immediately, you'll probably never get there.
Yeah, it's like saying, like, another example is funny. It's like somebody will go, "Hey Sim, what's your biggest influence in art?" And I'll say like Marcel Bistry, certain names. But most people, when they look at my art, they see like something like Walt Simonson, and I'm like, "Well, that's weird." You get.
Well,
what I meant is you'll never know where you end up by trying different things. Like you're thinking, like your head, you're like, I'm thinking Bisley, Arthur Adams, Jim Lee, all those names would pop up, like, but I would never say that my style is really like on Kirby or Simonson type, but that's what people see. And that's what's like, don't focus too much on your style, focus on something that you like. And that, it's like when we say that the biggest reward to a creator, to an artist, is somebody that goes, dude, I can recognize your style anytime you draw something.
Mhm.
I know that it's you. You're like,
Yeah.
fucking A. That's when you're doing the party and you're like, I've done it.
But just let it come, because let it come. It
Yep.
will. It will eventually. It will come all over your drawing paper, all over your tablet,
Everywhere.
and you won't even realize it when it happens. And then somebody will go, "That's a sticky mess," and you'll go, "Thank you. That's my sticky mess." And for Lord Finatra, go and sub to his channel. He says my tracing is worse than my actual drawings.
I think the point I was trying to make, though, is in when you're studying, when you're doing studies, right? When you're trying to rapidly iterate on things and you're trying to absorb a technique, and maybe you're lost, maybe you're struggling with it, right? And no matter how many times you draw it on your own, you can't seem to get it right. Personally, I think doing some rapid iteration on the way someone structures something, you could pull something from that and make it your own. I never advocate for anyone tracing anybody's work and saying that they drew something. That's utter bullshit, and it shouldn't happen. And you should be ashamed of yourself if you do that.
Me, I just say that you should always try and push yourself to not trace. Like, copy, not trace. Like, the thing is, put the drawing next to you. Try and copy it without tracing, because that's the point of the exercise. Because you're impeding yourself, you're hurting yourself,
Right.
by tracing over it. Because you're gonna go, you're just gonna trace the outline, you're gonna trace the details. You're not understanding the creation, the building, the shape, the skeletal build of it, right? Like, everybody goes like, oh, I can only draw like what is it again? Stick figures. I'm like, all my fucking drawing technically start as a fucking stick figure for the movement.
Yeah, because when you're drawing, or if you're coloring or painting, it's all about form. It's about trying to visualize something that's 3D and you're making it 2D. You're trying to understand the form, the roundness of something, the edge. Is that a sharp edge? Is that a dull edge? Is it a completely rounded edge? It's all about the form of the object. The head is egg shaped, but oh wait, there's angles in the head as well. The cheekbones stick out. So that's the kind of stuff you're learning. Yeah, it's like volume.
The notion that when you're standing, nobody's standing even. Your shoulders and your waist is always on an opposite stand, right?
This is exactly the reason, if you go into academia to study any type of art or design, you will have to do life drawing.
Yep.
I cannot state that enough. And even there's really good resources, especially if you're learning to draw. There's really, really good resources online where you can get 2-3 gigs of specific life drawing poses to download to use. But again, don't trace them. Build the drawing. Start with the stick figure.
I hate taking the metro, what you guys call the subway. Right? So I always have a fucking drawing pad on me when I used to take the metro, right? So every goddamn time my challenge was like, I'm drawing, I'm in the metro, somebody's sitting. Oh, there's an angle. Try and do it really quickly. Somebody's standing there. There you go. There's, it's like quick snapshot and just trying to get the pose. Even if it's just a fucking stick figure or a scribble, you get the pose. So you get to understand that nobody, like, so when somebody's standing, their hips is always a bit uneven with the shoulders. You know that when they're doing that, when they're walking, when the pensive, when somebody's anxious, the way they're standing, you notice this shit because you're doing it. So
Exactly.
For Vinny, contrapposto.
Exactly. Well, and this is the thing, right? You want to build up that library in your head. So, like, when you're thinking about, like, there's a certain character who he might have, you want him to have a certain swagger because it's going to give him a different, a different kind of attitude than other characters that might be like, if it's like a business guy, he's going to be a little more straight-laced, upright, uptight, as opposed to, like, let's say someone who's just listening to music on their earbuds or whatever, walking in the street, they might be listening to the music and getting down with it a little bit more in their head, and their step is going to be a little bit different. So it's going to be subtle things, like the mannerisms, the posture, but that applies to every part of what we're doing, because we have to, especially as comic book creators, we are the actors, the directors, wardrobe.
But
You
like
know what I
you
mean?
said, you build that
Lighting.
library, so you don't need pictures anymore. You don't need to go visualize that scene
Right.
because you can see that full scene in your head.
And also, art's not an overnight pursuit either. This is if you're going to be an artist, this is what you're serious about. It's a lifelong pursuit. You're not stopping learning at one point. You're not going to get to like, all right, I'm going to study for 1 year and then I'm going to draw comics.
Another one.
You might be drawing comics, but your style is going to change over and over and over. If you're seriously putting in the time to learn, you're always constantly learning. You never know it all ever.
Another thing I've learned.
It's almost like I know the toggle switch to hit to get everybody to comment on stuff.
And another thing I'd like to add is like not only you need to look at, when I say draw in metros, because when you do live posing, live drawings, it's a stiff person. It's just a pose. You're not watching somebody walk, right, or somebody to fall, give a tap on somebody's butt. Like it's a movement that you're studying while you're taking that moment, right? So you'll take a moment that you may not have taken usually, you could say, in that sequence of movement. So it's one of the reasons why I'm like, when I work, I like to watch a lot of movies. Sometimes I don't even pay attention to the goddamn movie that much. It's just I like to study movement. Like, there's a reason why I like to watch those goddamn music videos with Boyka doing the fights or doing, those things. I like to listen to music when I work, but I also study movement in all his ways, like how he's gonna freaking shift that leg backwards before he leaves in the air and swing that feet. And then you see how that arm is gonna go back and the other one's gonna go forward. You don't get that. You'll get robot all the time if you don't study that shit.
Well,
and you're
interesting point. There's a channel that I discovered a while back. It was about a year and a half ago. A guy by the name of Ethan Becker. He's an
that guy,
digital painter and all that. And one of the tips he gave, an invaluable tip. I never really thought about this before. He said a lot of people draw from poses. They draw from models or they draw from poses. Draw from paused video. If you want to get an action sequence, you want to have somebody swinging a sword or throwing a punch or whatever, go and set up a camera, throw that punch, take a video of it, pause it in certain steps, and find where the energy is at, and then put that in your drawing.
That's how my brain works. Like when I draw anything, I draw that scene's in my head. Like if I'm thinking Vincent sliding into that goddamn room, starting shooting that guy there, I have all that scene in my head, and I can technically visualize it and move the camera in certain angles on how I'm, I see it like I'm actually.
I'm saying that the technique for the person learning still is, they don't have the toolbox that you've built up over the many, many years. How old are you now? Like 60? I don't know. 40?
Fuck you! I'm 44.
Oh, I thought you were 70.
You're older than me in a year, and you're trying to freaking like.
I'm trying to get one. I can't even get one. I can't even get one.
No, for me anyway. I'm at the. I saw this kind of a tip on a video I was watching. It's like when you first start learning, you can look at even like these brilliant artists now, but if you go to their earliest stuff, it all starts out, they learn the building blocks. So maybe their first painting, you could see like every muscle, like how they went together. And then eventually they got to the point they started doing it so long where it's like, now I want to say something with this image. So it's like what looks cool versus what is right. So you start kind of, when you first start, you show every bicep, every line, and so you know where the muscles go. But eventually, you're like, all right, I want that rhythm. I want flow in my work, and so you go more towards, like he was saying, like motion. You want the motion in your illustration, and you want that more. You want your drawing to say something more than I know how to draw anatomy. And so you start to phase. Everything you've learned goes into. Eventually, you get a style, and it's that style. What style is basically what you like, and you phase out everything else you don't need to know. You just want to. You get to the point where this is how I like to draw. I know what's correct, but this is what I like, and this is what looks cool to me. And I think that's kind of the point everyone wants to get to.
I think the best
remember that
piece.
most of those legends that funded comics, that make comics what they are today, they consider themselves more cartoonists, right? So
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why one of the first advice I give people, it gets get yourself the animator's survival kit, right? It's made by one of the greatest animators in Disney and all those. He's the one that made Roger Rabbit, right? So you want to understand movement. You want to understand how to create movement from those shapes. There's nothing better than learning the basic animation, 2D animation. You'll understand how to do the beanbag. It's all those type of little principles that will help you be creative and not having to always look at reference. You'll be able to animate a movement in your head.
Right.
It's one of the biggest advice that I got, and I'm giving. And the book's by Richard Williams. It's amazing.
Richard Williams. Share that link out on Twitter, Sim.
Just to touch on what Spotty was saying there, the best piece of advice, I've been lucky enough to speak to a lot of people in comics game and a lot of creators recently, and the best piece of advice I've been given by anyone, bar none, was from Mr. Canales.
Canales.
He's told me, don't make it good, make it cool.
Yeah.
That's the Todd McFarlane way.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Make it sexy, baby. Make it sexy.
We kind of took a hard
Yeah.
drawing, but this is all relevant information. It's all good because Vinny is drawing with color right now, as you can see, as he's deploying all those painterly techniques. He's been excellently detailing those spherical objects that are in the foreground there now, that are closer to us.
I think the biggest take of that handbrake turn, sorry, Scott, is just don't stop doing it. Just keep doing it. Just don't stop. Like if any free time you've got, even if you're sitting down watching Coronation Street. Sorry, I know you don't know Coronation Street. Draw, paint, do something. Just doodle. Doesn't matter what it is. Get a pencil, whatever. Just keep doing it.
10,000 hours of repetition in any specific discipline to become a master. That's the general thinking, the general rule. So if you haven't done this painterly style for 10,000 hours, you're still on the way up. You're still learning. So think of it that way.
Right.
All right. Well, the last coloring style that there is that I was going to detail today is my own. Cut and grad.
Okay, so it's the end of the show.
Yeah. Here's a sample page. Now this is
already at 2 hours, guys.
We talked about sometimes combining styles together. So I picked a specific page from Xenotype where I've used cut and grad. I've used using a texture in the background. I've used a little bit of painterly all together to form kind of a hybrid image. This image is very colorful, but it's a scene where there's a little mishap. They're walking through the school, and Cliff here isn't really thinking about what he's doing, and he ends up grabbing Robin right in the boobie on accident.
Accident.
I always do that by accident.
So as you can see right here in the hand, there's rapid motion. So I've used some rapid brush strokes, more of a painterly, streaking, right? Because she's kind of going like this, and Odie's given a lot of streaks, a lot of lines here. But I still wanted the form to read. And if you look at the way that I've structured the faces, those are cuts and grads in the face to build out the forms, as well as, in the arm and then painterly textures in the background. I've used a lot of colors that kind of follow the characters and they illustrate who they are. They kind of go scene to scene with them. But this right here, this is all the styles put together. All the styles that I use put together. So cut and grad, painterly, cell shading, all three things.
Oh, yeah. Oh, before you continue, actually, let me show this real quick as well as another great example of that. That's what I did with the cover of Through the Woods. So it was something similar where I had like my regular painting technique, but I also, like you could see up on his face and on his beard, I went in there with that cut technique on the lighting in his face. That's when you take the lasso tool and you'll put in like those shapes, like where you want the light to hit, and then you come in there with your either airbrush or depending what brush you want to put on there. But yeah, I think it's important to do stuff like that. And you can see even back here, like the texturing that I have. So like I created a texture to get this extra kind of look. But yeah, I think it's important to do that. Mess around. His shirt, I got texture on the shirt to do like that kind of plaid look going across. But then like you could see on her legs, I went more like the painterly style. The fur, this is all painterly style.
Yeah.
So you could mix it up. There's nice room lighting all over the place. You have to mess around to see what's going to work best with each particular thing you're doing and what you're working on. But yeah, I thought I'd show that too, since you're hitting those. But yeah,
that's great. That's great. So here's an example of how to do my technique here. So this page, this is outdoor, it's raining, right? And all the characters are kind of assembled here. If we look in kind of the middle, we look at Felix. The way I render skin and hair, I use blend modes and masks. So my flat colors, my flats layer, it's the local color. I always color with local colors on flats, and then I blend in with masked blend moded color tiles. So I'm not actually ever painting with any color. I'm always only painting with black or white for the most part, for characters particularly. That way my skin tones and my hair always maintains a maximum chroma. It doesn't go higher or lower. It can only go so bright or so dark. It can't go any more. So if I turn on this layer, you can see the shadow layer. It's obviously it's applying all of the shadows. The highlights layer is applying all of the brights, and then deep shadows are subsurface scattering. Any place where you get an intensity of light where the blood shows under the skin, it adds a little bit of a reddish purple tone that you'll see. Kind of like when you cover a flashlight with your fingertip and you shine light through it, you can see the blood under the skin, kind of like that. And then I tend to use a blue reflected light because most of the scenes are the set pieces are outside, and so since Vangloria, the planet where this takes place, it's raining a lot. A lot of these scenes are raining outside, so you'll see a lot of blue reflected light coming up. And then the hair is very similar. I do the same thing with the hair. The hair is all of the characters in the scene here. They have a highlight and a shadow layer that mixes with the base color and the flats layer, and it gives you ribbons of light and reflection through cuts and gradients swiped across. So the way I do this, the way I put that to work is, let's say if I take the hair layer, I have everything in a folder mask that is blacked out, right? Mm-hmm. So if I cover all these masks with black, hide that, all the rendering goes away. Now, I go down to my flats layer with a non-contiguous magic wand. I select one of the hair, and it selects all the similar hair of one type. Hold shift, select that. Hold shift, select that. I get all the hair of the various characters that I'm going to render, and then I go to the mask on the mask layer, and I fill with white, which is Option Delete or Alt Delete. So now it's basically locking the transparency. It's another way of making a clipping mask without clicking and locking layers together. They're basically masked out with the folder, with the layer, the mask that's on the folder itself. So that's going to give me the freedom to paint wild however I want, and I can't possibly spill pixels out anywhere. So if we go to Felix's hair here, the first step is I go to my shadows layer here. I select the mask. Very important to make sure you select the mask. Then I get an anti-aliased lasso, and I just select all the shadow shapes, right? I'm just going to be really quick and rough. I'm not going to be very precise, just because this is just a quick demo.
Right.
I'm selecting the bottom edge because this is where all the rendering indicates that there's shadow down below on the hair. So we're going to select all these ribbons of shadow, ribbons of hair with shadow. And we're going to build a sequential selection, and we're just going to simply fill with white. And that applied the shadow to the entirety of the underside of the hair. Now, along the top, some of these ribbons, there's shadow shapes that kind of build out the volume of the hair as it sits on top of the head, right? So I make these kind of slightly arced selections, build them out, and fill them with black. So now I've got shadows on the top, shadows underneath, not the chin, but underneath the hair. Now I'm going to lay in some highlights. Select the highlight layer. Now this is set to linear dodge. It's a lighter value. The shadow layer is a darker value than the base color. Select the layer. Now this is the most important part of this technique, is when you're going to put in the highlights, the ribbons, you're going to, you want a rim light to appear. So that it's important that you brush it in all in one go, right? So I'm going to make a selection here. Maybe they'll connect with each other. This, just going to build a group selection of pieces like this.
I like, it's important too what you said though. It's with the rendering style that's there. Since you want to make sure what Odie had in, what he's telling you, the information he gave you by putting those lines there, you know what you have to do, which is awesome. And your technique that you developed to paint and color his work specifically, it's very important. That's what you're doing. I mean, that's what people have to understand as well.
Another thing, and this is next week's episode, is all going to be about determining light sources. How do we determine our light source? Do we kind of guess? What do we do to determine what our light source is and where it's coming from? My training as an inker is something that's very important. If you learn to read inks, and that's what we're going to talk about next week, that'll help you figure out where your light source is and where your artist has told you where I want the light to come from. It's a series of things you're going to think about. So now I take a soft brush, right? I'm going to get a soft round brush, just the default brush, no dynamics applied to it. I'm going to make it, and this is important. My style, I want hard edges and soft edges to appear. And in order for those gradients to appear, I need at least my brush to be no bigger than the height of my selection that I've made. So I'm going to make this brush a little bit smaller than the sum total of the height of all my selections. And now I'm going to brush white to reveal the color below. And I'm going to do it all in one go here. And what that's going to do is that's going to create another plane on top. So you've got the shadows, you've got the flat base color, and then you've got a selection matrix of little ribbons of hair. And I'm going to swipe right across them all at one time. It's important that they're done all together. That way the gradients all line up. So, you know, that's kind of probably a little heavier than I normally would go. So let's go the opacity of the brush, put it down to about 50%, and the flow down to, let's say 50%. And then brush back and forth, be a little slower with it. That way I can extend those gradients a little bit further and now increase the opacity and the flow, make the brush a little smaller and go in a specific place here, like right in the middle. What's going on here? Why is it not?
And the good thing about this technique Spartan's using is it's all with masks, so it's super non-destructive.
Yes.
It's very hard to screw up because you can always just paint with black or white and get back to your original state. So that's really important, guys. Especially if you get a lot of changes like I hear he gets. So
that's not a lot, but there were some where we did a lot of revisions and stuff. But the point is, if I want to erase, like if you look over here, I've got black and white. If I hit X, black goes to the foreground. I hit X again, it goes to the background. If X is on top or if a black is on top, I'm erasing. If white is on top, I'm drawing or I'm painting. So I can literally erase or paint just by hitting X. I'm not switching tools. I'm staying with the same tool. So but that's how I build out my hair. And when it comes to faces, so I've got this series of similar layer structure. If I go
Scott, just before you hit faces, you're giving me a headache again. I need to duck out, mate. I need to go and get some food.
Do your thing, brother.
It's getting late here, and I'm fucking hungry. I'm going to go and make more pizza again. And
I'm sorry.
I'm lucky enough. I got the opportunity to sit with Scots for 5-6 hours going through all of this step by step last night. So I do feel like I can legitimately kind of go and get food.
Appreciate you being here today, Cap.
Finny,
Yes.
Mr. Bacon, Sim,
Yep.
Spotty, Scots as well. Thank you very much for having me. I shall see you all again soon.
Later,
Good
bro.
night.
Later, Captain.
Lots of love, man.
And to Kyle's point here, seeing in CMYK, Command Y, so we lose a little tiny bit of intensity. It darkens up a little tiny bit, but I've picked the colors that are as close as possible to print. So obviously we get a little bit more saturation. It's a little bit more muted than the actual RGB values, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm fine with this amount of color shift. So, because this blue is slightly out of gamut, but it's okay.
Yeah, and to that point, when you use layer modes, it's almost going to be impossible to not get some colors that aren't going to print.
Yeah.
And it's just like switching over to that CMYK to see if it's acceptable, like if it's going to be way too much. So yeah.
Right. So as I was saying with the light sources, right? The penciler inker, they give you all the cues you need. So I'm going to look first. The first place I'm going to look to determine how I'm going to render the face is under the chin. Which way is the rendering going? Is it going to the left, to the right, or straight down below? Is there a hard black shape underneath? That tells me how intense the light is and how dark the shadow is under here. So as I can see, the rendering is going off to the right. So that means the light is coming from the other side, right? So first off, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lasso in. We're going to do this really rough. We're going to lasso in this shape, and on the shadows layer, I'm going to fill with white. Then right here, we're going to use some anatomy. You ready, fam? Sternocleidomastoid. We're going to select right there, and we're going to detail a shadow shape there. We've got some cast shadows from the hair, right? And we've got a thick line up here right in the ear, so we're going to add to that, and maybe a little bit right there, and we'll fill that with white as well. Now, Odie has drawn out these outlines of the hair ribbons. We can do that as well. We don't necessarily need to follow it exactly. Matter of fact, I wouldn't follow it exactly. I would kind of approximate, because the light you're putting in may differ slightly from exactly what the pencil's outline. See, he's got like one big piece here. Well, in my view, you wouldn't have that because the light is coming across and it would be split into thirds. So I'm just going to detail that. And you can see I'm holding shift each time. I'm adding to my selection. I'm going to be covering up some of this with future selections. So this is all just part of the process. I'm building out my values. And then alongside that, part of the earlobes being blocked by the side of the cheek, fill that. Now, underneath the nose, I look at faces as an accordion of planes almost, right? The top of the brow is facing up, upward plane. Underside of the eyebrow right here in the eye socket, facing down. Cheekbone facing up. Underside of the cheekbone slightly facing down. Underside of the nose facing down. Top of the nose facing up. So we look at these planes, and depending on where the light source is coming from, we know whether something needs to be in light or in shadow, right? So the underside of the nose, he's indicated some rendering here. So I'm going to follow the general shape of the nostrils, right? The three parts of the nose. We got a nostril, a middle barrel, and then a nostril. So I'm going to put a little divot there. I'm going to fill that. And now the lip itself, the lip is it's facing down. It's a plane facing down. So it'll be slightly in shadow. So I'm just going to detail the palette and then fill that. So build out his lip shape. Now underneath the lip casts some downward shadow as well. So and he's indicated that with some rendering. I'm going to fill that. And then I want to detail the jawline as well, the mandible and sides of the cheekbone. So this side is we've already determined that because of the cast shadow from its rendering, this side of the face is probably going to be in shadow. So we're just going to hard fill that. Also, the underside of the eye socket planes, those are going to be in shadow. So we're just going to fill. We're going to lose a lot of those points, but that's okay. That's okay. Again, doing this real rough, real fast. Now, the bridge of the nose terminates to the eye socket right here near the tear duct. So if we draw a line here, we can fill that and put that in shadow. All right. So as we're building out the structure of the face, we're kind of keeping an eye on. We know where all the bones are at. We're trying to remember where all of our planes are at, where the light is coming from, and how it reacts to it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a slight selection here. And I'm going to fill this as well, just to build out the shape of the face. Even though the light's coming from here, it's rounding away from us. I can reasonably say that there might be a little bit of tone there. And now that I've got these shapes kind of detailed, bottom side of the lobe, I'm going to use a soft brush. I'm with a relatively low flow, like 30% flow, 30% opacity, and I'm going to brush in, and I'm just going to shape my selections here. I want hard edges to show through in my style, my cut and grad style. I want some hard edges to show through, but I also want some soft edges as well. So I'm going to add some tone here just to kind of build out the shape. And another thing, the lip rounds away. So I'm going to create a little selection here, and then I'm going to use a soft brush, and I'm just going to touch just the bottom edge a little bit, just to detail a little bit of the form, right? Just to build out a little bit of the lip shape. Now that I've got just the basic shadow shapes in, a couple things too. The eyelid, the way the eyelid rolls down, you get a rolled up edge. Some of it's in shadow, some of it's in light. Right? So we're gonna build out this. Somebody jacking up a car?
My chair is very loud.
Okay, so we're gonna build out some shapes right here in the tear duct area. Just gonna hard fill those, following the rendering. Couple on either side, like this. Boom. So now we've detailed the folds in the eyelid. Next thing, we're going to go to deep shadows now. This is going to give us some of that subsurface scattering, but also we're going to build out some values, some darkness into our shadow areas. Not quite ambient occlusions, but I kind of want to add some more value to some of the darker areas. So with this purple tone, we're just gonna add some tone in here just to richen up the color a little bit. I'm just gonna open it up and brush in some underneath the ribbon line of the hair, because there's some space between the hair dangling here and the skin surface. We're gonna add a little bit of tone there just to give it a little bit of shadow. Now, the underside of the eye, I want to add a little bit more value there. So we're just gonna grab a shape like that and brush in a little bit of tone. And now some light reflects off of the cheekbones up into the eye socket. So let's say we go here and get some reflected light, and we just put a little bit of blue there, just a tiny bit, not a lot, just a tiny bit. Same thing here, deep shadow, painting on masks. We're not putting any color down, we're only black and white. We're only painting with black or white. A little bit of reflected light here, just a touch. All right, now the underside of the nose, we want to richen up that value as well. Now, I want to make sure I don't want to line up my original shadow shape with my deep shadow. I want to make that just underneath and not following it. I want a little bit of uniqueness to these lines. Let's take that, boom, like that. And now with a soft brush in this deep shadow tone here, and then take my opacity back down really low and reflect a tiny bit of blue light onto one side. Right? Now, doing the same with the lip, we're going to go back to the deep shadows. We're going to select a similar shape to before. And guys, I'm moving really fast, so my selections are fucking warbly, so just bear with me.
I was going to say, man, it's like, what are you doing?
What are you even doing? Now, this spot under the lip, we want to add a little bit more value here as well. So we're going to put some deep shadow in there. Right? Okay. And maybe a little bit, we'll make another selection here underneath the chin. like that. Okay. And fill that with some of that deep shadow tone as well. And then reflect a tiny bit of blue light underneath there. All right, so now we've kind of got the basic structure. Even though this side of the nose is facing the light source, I'm still going to build out a tiny bit of shape here because I want the structure of the nose to show, right? I want the nostrils to be visible. So now with a really soft brush, I'm going to, on my shadow layer, I'm going to brush in a little bit more intense near the top where the shadows are at, lighter near the bottom, and we're going to put a little bit in there like that. Now, if I want to reshape this, all I got to do is make a selection, right? And then fill with black or white. And now it comes out of the mask. Now the shape is where I want it to be, right? And this is a little bit more intense than I want. So with black, I'm going to brush that in to take it back a little bit. Boom. Now, the way I detail the highlights now that we've got all our shadow shapes in, is I go to my light layer and I think about the planes of the face. Okay, so first underneath the eyelid here, I'm going to make 2 selections, kind of sequential, kind of like that. And then I'm going to get a brush with white selected, and I'm going to brush across it at one time to point light, or to say that these planes, light is hitting them from up above. Same thing here, like that, and one right there, and then brush in some white, and now I've got some light there. Next thing I want to do is I want to detail the cheekbone. The cheekbone, I make a selection that looks kind of like this, swoops underneath the eye socket and back around the shape of the face, right? I make a shape that looks like that. And first off, I want to make my brush almost not quite as big as the shape, but I want to be able to I don't want to fill all of the plane. I don't want to fill all of the sides of that shape with tone. So I'm going to brush across it just a little bit, just to get the beginnings of it. Then I'm going to make, and as I know that the shape it curls up and inward, right? It goes up and curves towards the eye socket.
Yeah, the cheekbone's a tricky little shape. It's almost got like a shelf on it. So
Right. Yeah. So being the way that these planes all slope together, I'm going to make a slightly smaller selection, similar to the one before, like that. And now I'm going to add some more value. And I can only get so bright because I can only reveal so much of this color on the mask. So I'm going to brush in a little bit more. And as you can see, those 2 lines are stacked on top of each other. Now, I know Inkspots is going fucking crazy right now because he sees those lines, but we're going to fix that. We're going to fix that in a second. So another selection. We're going to add a little bit more. Another selection smaller. And you see I'm creeping up towards the eye socket. And I'm coming down a little bit and up a lot, right? And now I'm going to add a little tiny bit of a specular, not quite a specular highlight, but more intense spot. Now, if I hit X and I switch to black, right? Hit X, hit the right tool, and now I brush in with low opacity, I can blend some of these lines away just so that I have smoother transitions, but I also still see some lines because my style, I want lines. I want those cuts to show a little bit. Now, the next plane is right here on the palette, on the left and right sides of the nose. That shape, it looks like this, right? Now I'm going to favor the top side of that, right? Because this shape curves in towards the face. It's a curve, it's an arc, right? So I'm going to favor the top edge and I'm going to brush in, hopefully with white, brush in just a little bit, just to make that start to show. Now, I'm doing the same thing I did with the cheekbone. Make another selection like that. Brush in along the top. Make another selection smaller. Brush in along the top. And then maybe a little tiny specular highlight, but not really a specular, just a highlight spot. And when we zoom out and we look at the way the light is hitting the face, remember, Inkspot said, you got to look at it at scale. You look at it close, you see the lines. You zoom out, the print size, you don't see them as much. But the planes are being detailed there. We're going to do exactly the same thing to the other side. Only the difference is we're going to deploy something called Rembrandt's triangle. Okay, Rembrandt's triangle is when a face is lit from the side, the nose blocks part of the light going to the other side. If you look at Rembrandt's work, one of the classic masters, you will see this triangular shape that shows up here. And that's because the nose is blocking, because the nose is angled, right? So you're getting light here and it's blocking light there, and you're getting a little piece of light that shows up in this triangle that's right there, right? The arc of the nose. So we're going to use Rembrandt's triangle here. We're still going to do the same form. Go back to our highlights. We're still going to do a similar form, but it's going to be much smaller, right? Because we got a lot more shadow on this side. Soft brush with white. We're going to kind of go through the, whoa, too hot. Down to about 30%. Put a little bit of light there. Make a sequential selection that's smaller. Hello. And then another sequential that's smaller. Oops, not quite the right shape I'm looking for. There we go. All right. And then one little tiny highlight kind of in the middle there. All right. Now we're going to do the same shape on the other side, only it's going to be sloped a little bit sharper, like that. Brush in a little bit of tone just to get the shape started, like that. A little bit more. Probably one more. And again, being real sloppy with my selections because we're doing it live. Doing it live. All right, so now the lip, the upward plane of the lip, it needs some light. So we're just going to make a selection like that. We're going to put a little bit of cast light on it. We're going to make a smaller selection here, a little bit of cast light. And we're not adding any effects. We're not bouncing any real extra stuff in here. We're just kind of basically doing this. Now we work our way down the face, down to the chin, upward facing plane. So we're going to make a selection that kind of favors the left side or the other side where the light is coming from, and brush in a little bit of tone. Not tone, but white. Smaller selection. Brush in a little bit more. Smaller selection. Brush in a little bit more. So now we've added light on all the planes, the upward facing planes. Let's do the nose. So we're going to make a shape that kind of accommodates the nostril. Make a small brush because we don't want it to be that big. We just want to touch the edge here like that, just to get some shape in the nostril. Another smaller selection, favoring the left side where the light's coming from. Another selection like that. Now the middle of the nostril or the middle of the barrel of the nose, another shape like that. Maybe something more like that. Anyway. All right. Brush a little bit there. A little here. Something right there. Now let's go to the other side. Now, because this is being blocked by the middle of the nose, we're going to put a little bit of tone at the top, and we're going to put a little tiny highlight right here. Like that. We'll probably leave that be as it is right there. And then just to detail the bridge of the bridge of the nose, we're going to make a selection kind of like that and just swipe across it a little bit, just to put a little tiny rim light on the height of the nose. Now we go over to the ear, make a selection right in the middle, make a selection here. We're just detailing some of the highlight areas. We're not going to put too many stacked in there. And then right here, the sternocleidomastoid.
Stop using big words.
Brush into that and the crest of that muscle. Brush in like that, and then maybe one specular highlight right there, and then underneath the throat area. We won't use a technical term because I just got scolded. Brush in a highlight, and there we go. So we got this ear too. So we'll put a little tiny select a little shape there. brush in a little highlight there. Okay. So that's how I render faces. It's a series of masks, all blend modes, screen, multiply, and the reflected light is hard light, and then deep shadow is also multiply. But I stack gradients on top of each other. And the most important part of that style is to reform the shapes as you it's like a topographical map. If you Google topographical map, you'll notice that it's top down of the terraform. You'll see the lines kind of get wider and closer together as it makes its way up the surface of the mountain, right? That it's trying to look at top down. That's kind of the same way I'm structuring my gradients. Make sure that my brush is never bigger than my selection, because if not, I should just hit Option Delete or Alt Delete and fill. I'm trying to brush in a gradient where I see a couple hard edges, a couple soft edges, and stack them on top of each other. So that's my cut and grad style, both hair and skin.
Yeah, and it's interesting because even though you're cut and grad, that's a very unique way to do it. The way you're doing it, all non-destructive. You have the masks. Most people don't do it that way, but the way you're doing it is smart because you can always edit it. And that's a big thing when you're doing comic book coloring, because I'll get changes on pages that I did a year ago, because the book's still in process. It's like, wow. And so I don't have, no way to just, if I did it like you did, I could just go and paint black or white and change something. But since I don't, a lot of times I'll have to go in and redo everything, start from scratch. So it's very smart, to have a way to go backwards. So, yeah,
always wherever you can work non-destructible. And I will teach anybody this layer mask technique, because it'll it's not going to increase your speed per se, but it will make you more versatile to any curveball you get thrown. So there you go. Well, hey, let's do some promotion. We covered all the coloring styles. We colored cut and grads. We covered a lot of painterly style. We covered a little bit of cell shading. We heard and got to watch Vinny do his magic. We got to watch Ink Spots talk about light and what light does, which is amazing. Really appreciate all of the great demonstrations you guys did. So let's go around and first unshare my freaking screen, and let's talk about our projects that we got going on. Michael Beacon.
Yeah, I got 7 Legions. We got the books in. They are shipping out as soon as you order them. All orders have been shipped, so ready for more.
That's a beautiful cover. That's a beautiful cover.
Oh yeah. So it's the story of a samurai who winds up being essentially drafted into a war on the galactic scale. So it can be interesting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's still on Indiegogo in demand, correct?
Yep. Yeah, it's sort of like an on-demand store. So order it, you'll ship it. I'll ship it.
Nice. Sim, you got a little going on right now, don't you?
Yeah, I got a little something going on. It's called Tales from the Nadverse, and go check it out. You'll get to meet the ultimate intergalactic man of action, Nat the Merc, with his friends who live in that Nadverse. So go check it out. There's 5 short stories. You don't want to miss out.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Intergalactic man of action. I don't know. I just came up with it. Kind of cool.
And you've got a couple of things coming out, right? The Tales from the Natverse and Nat the Merc, right? And there's some people coloring those books. Who do you get to color those books?
I don't know. I some 2 guys there that kind of like do big soul crushing. I don't know how you call it.
Superman.
Yeah.
Power Gingers.
Yeah, Tales of the Nadverse is right now. It's set up to be like a companion book that will follow through continuously with Tales of the Nadverse. So every time I'm gonna want to do like a side story, introduce new characters or something, there's gonna be a new issue of Tales of the Nadverse. So Tales of the Nadverse is mainly colored by Beacon, and Nat the Merc is colored by Scottman. So right now in Tales from the Netverse, in the 2 first one, it's a team up that we're having for the launch. It's until we launched like not the Merc. Right now it's a team up, so it's a duo there. So when it's a story that has to do with Nat, that's directly linked like to what's leading to the new story, it's Scottman. And everything else, all the other characters, Elrica, Luani, anything else that tells in an adverse, that's Beacon. So
Nice.
it's technically Scottman is the guest colorist on Tales of an Adverse until we launched not the Merc.
Oof. So we got a 1-2 punch of power gingers.
Yes, dude, it's a power ginger introducing the most badass power ginger in the goddamn comic world.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
cool. Beacon, do you keep current?
What?
Current? So
Yeah, he's
excited?
that excited about the
Yeah.
book. Go back it.
It's a mutation, okay, guys? It's a mutation.
So mutation.
Ink spots.
Sometimes I purr. It's normal. It's perfectly normal.
Right now I'm working on a bunch of stuff, but the 2 main ones, of course,
Your
if you want to share my screen real quick. We got the little book, Cash Grab, that is approaching $250,000. If you guys haven't backed it yet, there's a bunch of fun stuff. We got Kelsey Shannon in here, drawing John Malin getting his butthole eaten out. You know, you can get that special cover. You can get a great Ashcan children's book, and then you can get the main story colored by me. And these are old pages. Don't you hate it when you look at your old work? You just want to make it better. So anyway, we got Cash Grab going on. Coming up, we're gonna have Charlie's London's book, From East Lane to Limelight, where Vinny Tartamella did a beautiful cover for it. Also, Donald DeLay did one as well. And so if you want to sign up for the mailing list right now for that, that'd be great. And then if you guys just want to, follow me on Twitter at MyEvilRobot, that'd be great.
Nice.
That's it.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Vinny.
Yeah, my friend. We got a few projects. I'm sharing screen there. So
Yeah.
we got City of Venus, Dead City. We're getting pretty damn close to 24,000 on this one. But this campaign has 4 different. You can pick up 4 different books from here. You get City of Venus. You get my 2 art books, and you can get the Ghostly Manor and Howling Hill. There's only 10 of those left. So, I would snatch those up quickly because once they're gone for good. That's my children's book project with my brother Frank. But, City of Venus is the main one on this campaign. So please go check that out. I also have Through the Woods, the hardcover edition. This one's getting even closer to 38,000. So, thank you guys. This one's hardcover. It's a completed story. It's 98 pages. Yeah, you're going to get your money's worth on this for sure. We also have an Ashcan if you want to get that option with that tier. This one the cover was done by Kelsey Shannon, but we got a couple other great artists and creators in there. Doodlebag, Sim, he's in there. Canalis, Passion for Drawing. I know we got some great people who jumped in on that. But there's also a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff you'll see in the Ashcan that you won't see in the main book. So, including like my first renderings of the main characters, which I think is always a treat to take a look at that stuff. But this one's a ghost story. You got plenty of violence, action, a lot of cool stuff happening. So, please check this one out. Because again, once these are gone, they're gone for good as well. It's a hardcover book. I did not hit 6 figures, so I am not going back to print on this. It's very costly, but these and all my books, they ship out immediately. So if you order them today, I will be mailing them out on Tuesday since Monday's a holiday. But so please check these out. And thank you, Scotsman, and thank you everybody on panel and in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott, can I show something before we leave?
Sure.
We don't want to see that. Oh, never mind.
Now I've reached.
That's 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I reached out to 6 a.m. Comics since he does color and he has a cell shade style to come on a future show. I was trying to get him on today since we're talking about rendering styles because he has a very unique cell shade style. love to talk to him about it and get his perspective. So look to 6 a.m. Comics maybe coming on the show in the future.
Nice.
Very
Sweet.
cool.
He's doing the sticker because I wanted to, like, I told him I want my Natverse sticker to look like Metal Slug, your style. So it's Metal Slug, only better, right? And dude, I'm so fucking happy. It's it looks freaking amazing. And yesterday he sent me another one.
Oh shit.
Oh,
And it's
dude,
fucking
that is
amazing.
sweet.
That's going on my wall, dude.
Nice.
That is sweet. That's
Okay.
awesome. Yeah.
He's such a good character designer and like capturing the essence of characters. You know what I mean?
Right now, this week he said that he's gonna be doing because I asked him to do Luani, Rose. He's doing the entire crew.
Oh shit.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for his book to come out. It looks great, man. So I
Yeah,
hope
no.
it does well.
Fighting for the day one first number one slot backer. I'm gonna be fighting y'all for that shit. Number one right here. I'm gonna be fighting for that shit.
So
Yeah.
all the backers, even the people that only get in the $25 tier, when we reach the 15K, gets all 5 or maybe 6 stickers by 6 a.m. And when we reach the 25K, but that's when we do the swimsuit special.
Yeah. And if y'all don't follow 6 a.m. Comics, go look him up on Twitter. He puts out silly rap videos. He does all kinds of cool stuff.
And
And
it's fucking great. And if you have an Apple phone, go check out his goddamn game.
oh, Starfetch. Yeah.
Farfetched. Yeah.
So, well, that does it for the show. Appreciate everybody for coming out today. Smash like, subscribe, share it out if you want to. We're going to be doing this. I'm going to do this until we get all the steps in the process from starting the very beginning to sending a page to somebody to go to print. So it's going to be week after week. So I appreciate the amazing panel we've had and all of our awesome viewers. Thank you all very much. Anybody else have anything else to say?
We love you, guys. We love you.
Have a nice day, and we love you.
All right. Take care.